Ready when you are, Jamie.
Please begin now. Thank you. All right. Good evening and welcome to the June 24th meeting of the Falmouth Conservation Commission. This meeting is being held virtually via Zoom video conference. Please be patient. We will do our best to be efficient and allow everyone to participate equitably. This meeting is also being broadcast and streamed online by FCTV in real time. As this meeting is being recorded by Zoom and broadcast by FCTV, please be cognizant of what you say, how you say it, and what can be seen in your background. Remember, I can see when you're rolling your eyes. The chair recognizes the attendance of staff members, Jen, Kevin, our recording secretary, Susan, and our esteemed selectman, Sam Patterson. The chair recognizes the attendance of commissioners, Russ, Steve, Maury, Kevin, Betsy, Mark, Peter, Courtney, Pat, and myself. Let's see, to the commissioners, remember for commenting, I'll call on each of you at the appropriate time. Let's try to refrain from speaking over each other. I remind the commissioners that all votes have to be done by roll call. When I call your name, please state your name and your vote. And again, it's redundant, but even if you're the one that made the motion or the second, I'm still going to ask for your vote. To our public participants, there will be an opportunity for public comment for each hearing. If you'd like to comment on a particular hearing, you may submit any comments or questions via the chat function once that hearing has been opened. At the appropriate time, I will call for public comments and any submissions will be read into the record. The link and further instructions are posted on the agenda. First up, I'd like to congratulate Kevin, Mark, and Steve. They were reappointed for another 3-year term. Thank you for your continued participation and welcome back. First item, vote minutes, June 10th, 2019. I think that's a typo. Anybody have anything on the June
minutes
10th?
and I'd move approval.
Second, Gladfelter.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Excuse me. Betsy.
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney.
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin. O'Brien.
O'Brien, aye.
Mark.
Rooney, aye.
Maury.
Carlo Hawks, aye.
Pat.
Harris, aye.
Peter.
Walsh, aye.
Russ.
Robbins, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
They're accepted. Thank you. Next up, a request for a continuance under notice of intent. First one is Les Chernoskas, 69 Paola Drive, East Falmouth, Mass. For permission to raise RAZE, an existing single-family dwelling, and to construct a new single-family dwelling, to upgrade to a Title V septic system, to install dry wells, retaining wall, rinse station, a wall and steps, and an elevated AC unit.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the applicant is requesting a continuance until July 1st.
So Carlo Hawks,
Gladfelter, second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to continue until 7/1. Betsy.
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney.
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin.
O'Brien, aye.
Mark. Mark Gurney.
Aye.
Thank you. Maury.
Carlo Hawks, aye.
Pat.
Harris, aye.
Peter.
Walsh, aye.
Russ.
Robbins, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
Okay, the hearing is continued till 7/1. Next request for a continuance under notice of intent is Anastasios Parapestis, trustee, 160 Penzance Road, Woods Hole, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to install a 12 by 20 pool, stone pool terrace, stone retaining walls, stone steps, pool utilities, lighting, fencing, drainage, and all associated clearing, excavation, grading, irrigation, landscaping, and mitigation plantings. Then,
The applicant is requesting a continuance until July 15th.
I can, at the request of the applicant, continue it to July. Need Harlow.
second, Gladfelter,
Okay, we have motion and second to continue until 7:15. Betsy,
Gladfelter, I.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Maury,
Harlow Hawks, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Russ,
Robbins, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
All right, the hearing is continued until 7:15. Thank you. Next up, our request for determination of applicability. First up is Kevin and Karen Murphy, 53 Dale Drive, North Falmouth, Mass, for permission to extend an existing deck by 19 feet over an existing concrete slab patio. Kevin,
Yes, Mr. Chairman, staff recommends a -2 under the state and bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
So moved, Harlow Hawks.
Bird, second.
okay, we have a motion and a second. Betsy,
Gladfelter, I.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Rooney, aye.
Maury,
Harlow Hawks, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Russ,
Robbins, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. Next up, Black Beach Harbor Head Civic Association, 0 Little Neck Bars Road, map number 24-09-001-001 and 24-09-001 and -003, West Falmouth, Mass, for permission to install a portable 6x8 guard shack on Little Neck Bars Road, just before the intersection to Chappaquoit Road. Kevin,
Staff recommends a -2 under the state and bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
So moved,
So moved, Harlow
Gladfelter,
Hawks. Harlow Hawks, second.
I'm sorry, who made the motion?
Gladfelter,
Thank you. All right, Betsy,
Gladfelter, I.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Rooney, aye.
Maury,
Harlow Hawks, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
I missed Pat, I'm sorry.
Harris, aye.
Russ,
Yeah, I got a quick question for staff. Is this the first time this has been done, or is this an additional one? I know there was one there last.
So Russell, you approved one similar to this at the end going onto Associates Road. Like it's a little where they have their little guard. They just want him to have some shade. So they built like a little house, like a little shed looking thing on a trailer so they can get it out of there in case of a storm event. That was required for the one at the end of Chappie Road that goes into Associates Road. This is similar to that, so it'll be at the end where they have the guard at the end of Black Beach. The provision is they can't stop public access walking. Okay, there's no parking for public access down there, but they can't impede people walking.
I have another question for staff.
Thank you.
Yes.
Jen, I
Russ?
just had another question for staff.
Yep.
So somebody that's handicapped wanted to drive them down and drop them off to the town property.
Maury, can you repeat that? You were kind of fading in and out there.
I'm sorry. So there's town land down there. What if you have somebody that's handicapped and you just want to drop somebody off and then drive out? Are they going to stop you from doing that?
I'm going to let the association president, I'm going to bring him up as a panelist. He is in the waiting room, so to speak. Is that okay, Mr. Chairman?
that's fine.
Mr. Doyle, I'm about to promote you as a panelist, so you can answer the question for the board. Mr. Doyle?
He's got to turn off his mute. Put on his video.
Let me see if the other
Okay,
gentleman
can
is
you
here.
hear me
Oh, we can hear you now, Mr. Doyle. Thank you.
Yeah, the question was whether we would allow people with for handicapped access. We've always allowed that to happen. You know, and actually in some cases we'll also allow people if they have like a pregnant woman with kids or something like that. It's at the discretion of the guard. Obviously, the issue sometimes is people will say things and or make up all kinds of stories about people who they know down there and so forth. But there is no parking. And since I'd say over the last couple of months, there's been a significant increase just in a lot of people coming in. We've had an increase in theft and some vandalism and some threats from some people coming in. So really it's this is just to the guard deck itself or shack itself is really just to help the guards be able to weather and make it look a little more official. But we always allow, we're completely aware that people have right of access to get down to the inlet. Does that
Thank you.
answer the question or?
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Doyle.
Okay.
Sure, yeah, I forgot. I didn't turn my video on, but.
It's okay. We heard you.
Okay.
Russ, could you repeat your vote?
Absolutely. Robbins, aye.
Thank you. Steve,
Aye.
any further comments? It is unanimous. Thank you. Next up. Robert and Shannon LeBlanc, 6 Lawrence Street, East Falmouth, Mass. For permission to remove an existing chimney and rinse station and to construct and maintain a 27 square foot addition. Kevin?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, staff recommends a -2 under the state and bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Heard, so moved.
Carlo Hawk, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney?
Heard, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Mark?
Rooney, aye.
Maury?
Carlo Hawk's eye.
Pat?
Harris, aye.
Peter?
Walsh, aye.
You? Russ?
Robbins, aye.
Steve?
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. Thank you. Next up, John and Mary Lorero, 44 Uncantina North, West Falmouth, Mass. For permission to install a new Title V sewage disposal system with the associated utilities and no increase in design flow. Kevin?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, staff recommends a -2 under the state and a -3 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Heard,
Thank
so moved.
Carlo Hawk.
Gladfelter, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney?
Heard, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Mark?
Rooney, aye.
Maury?
Carlo Hawk's eye.
Pat?
Harris, aye.
Peter?
Walsh, aye.
Russ?
Robbins, aye.
Steve?
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. Thank you. Next up, Daniel and Laura Nungasser, 178 Edgewater Drive East, East Falmouth, Mass. For permission to conduct minor maintenance to an existing licensed pier. Kevin?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, staff recommends a -2 under the state and a -3 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Heard,
Yeah.
so moved.
Carlo Hawk, second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney?
Heard, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Mark?
Rooney, aye.
Maury?
Carlo Hawk's eye.
Pat?
Harris, aye.
Peter?
Walsh, aye.
Russ,
Robbins, aye.
and Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. Thank you. Next up is Mary Ellen Pimental, 339 Carriage Shop Road, East Falmouth, Mass, for permission to install a new Title V septic system with associated grading and landscaping. Kevin?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The applicant has requested a continuance until July 1st.
At the request of the applicant, first Harlow Hawk.
Gladfelter, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to continue until 7/1. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, I.
Mark,
Gurney, aye.
Maury,
Harlow Hawks, aye.
Peter.
Walsh, aye.
Sorry, Pat, I skipped you again. Pat, don't take it personal.
Harris, I.
Russ,
Robbins, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
All right, it is continued until 7/1. Next up, Michael Serrard, 59 Old Minot Road, East Falmouth, Mass, for permission to construct an attached garage addition, to construct a 53 square foot deck and reset the steps, to remove a portion of walkway, and to install a subsurface sewage disposal system. Kevin,
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Staff recommends a -2 under the state and a -3 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so moved.
Harlow Hawk, second.
okay, we have a motion and a second. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, I.
Mark,
Gurney, aye.
Maury,
Harlow Hawks, aye.
Pat,
Harris, I.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Russ,
Robbins, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. Thank you. All right. Next up, our requests for hearing under notice of intent. All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are held simultaneously under the authorities of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision of the commission is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority. First up, Joanne and Gary Perwak, 233 Bayshore Drive, North Falmouth, Mass, for permission to raise, RAZE, an existing single-family dwelling and to construct a new single-family dwelling with associated deck, Title V septic system, gravel driveway, utility installation, and all associated clearing, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
Mr. Chairman, I promoted Mike McGrath up to present for the applicant.
Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now, Mr. McGrath.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen.
Okay.
Yep.
My name is Michael McGrath. I'm a civil engineer and land surveyor, and I'm going to present the plan tonight that are and the notice of intent for the project at 233 Bayshore Drive, North Falmouth. This is a copy of the plan that's been filed with the commission, and I have colored it to show certain things and highlight certain things. The site is it's a private residentially developed land. It's approximately 20,000 square feet in area. It's developed by a house with patio, driveway, and landscaping. There is riprap all along the shore of Wild Harbor. The wetland resources area on the site include land under the ocean, land containing shellfish, a coastal beach in here, then land containing, land subject to coastal storm flowage. There's a coastal beach and an armored coastal bank. So what the project is we're going to do work within the AE zone. That is the land subject to coastal storm flowage and land within 100 feet of a coastal bank. We're going to demolish the existing house completely. This, you can see if on the graphic, I'm tracing the outline of the existing house. So we're going to basically demolish and remove the existing house. We're going to construct a new single-family house with decks. We're going to construct the new Title V septic system, as well as new driveway, new utilities, and the required grading, etc. This is the septic system that has been designed, and it's been cited to be as far away from Wild Harbor as possible. So you have regulations that require mitigation that varies with how much impervious area there is in certain distances back from the resource area. And the buffer zone A for width for this property is the 50-foot setback from the coastal bank, which is the top of the riprap. And in this case, the FWR 1018 for zone B goes 100 feet. So if you can see the orange line, there's a portion of the existing house and a portion of the proposed house lie within 100 feet of the top of the coastal bank. So this project, we have to address the increase in impervious area. So the proposed house, including the decks, is all within the B and no closer to the coastal bank. The existing, it's going to be built according to the floodplain standard. The overall impervious area is almost the same. We actually reduce it by 7 square feet, which on a project this size is de minimis. There's no new development within the A. Is less 7 square feet in this area. So the bottom line is that we don't require any new mitigation for this project under your regulation. There's a single tree near the house that's going to be removed, which is it's close in this area. And we're putting a new one over in here, which is better for the environment in that it's slightly closer. It's in your resource area A, which according to you is where it should be. All of the roof runoff and driveway stormwater will be directed into dry wells. The proposed Title V system replaces an existing cesspool, so that's much better. So this is a significant improvement in that the project's going to be built to meet FEMA standard. The septic system replaces a substandard cesspool. It's located more than 100 feet away. We're taking care of road runoff. We're putting a replacement tree. We're not going to have any adverse effects on the wetland resources. And as far as we can see, this project meets the performance standards of the wetlands regulation and the state act, and actually provides greater protection than what exists. So I'd be happy to answer questions from the commission.
Thank you, Mr. McGrath. If you would stop screen sharing.
Oh.
Jen, would you like to start?
I don't know how to
The staff only had, when Alyssa went out there, just Mike, those large kind of shrubs near your contour, your spot 12.9, 12.7, and 12.4. You don't have them being removed, but we don't know how you're going to, kind of build the new house with them there. So if they do come down, the commission might want to have that replaced and have more, a few more little buffer plantings in that zone A. That was our only comment.
Okay. Kevin, do you have anything to add? Kevin Newton?
I do not. Good.
Could you just
Thank you.
describe again where those shrubs are?
They're on your plan, Mike. They're next to your spot grades 12.9, 12.7, 12. They look like
yes.
little.
Yes. We show little circles, but they're bigger. Yes.
They are a lot bigger. So they're just kind of like on the landscape there. So we kind of figured they were going to be removed. So can you add some replacement shrubs for those, please?
Yes. And I'll send photographs to the commission showing those shrubs, how big they are. Yes, we'll do that.
So you're going to mitigate for them?
Yes, we'll,
How much?
we- I will have to measure like the footprint area and I'll look at the size of the diameter of the stems and I'll come up with replacement that's based on equivalent diameter of the new shrub.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, Jen?
No.
All right. I'll open up to commissioner comments. Betsy?
So I have a question about plants too. Mike, what's the diameter of the tree that's coming down? It's actually quite a substantial tree.
Yes. I'm sorry, it doesn't seem to show on my plan. I'll find out.
I couldn't find it either. So I'm wondering if you could, instead, I mean, if you don't want to wait and find out, if you could agree to put in like 3 or 4 trees. And then my question to Maury is, what size trees should be there? I'm a little leery of 5 to 7 foot trees. I think that might be a pretty windy, it's protected as opposed to on the other side of Wild Harbor, but it could be better to make them a little bit smaller. So Maury, I'm asking through Jamie. You're
So
on,
you're asking to do multiple?
you're on mute, Maury.
Sorry. Smaller and more would be better, just because like cluster cedars do well if they're, smaller and it's.
Yeah, so that was my only, other than that, it's pretty straightforward, and little clumps in the A zone, clumps of vegetation or nice little clumps there.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to make sure that I'm talking about, there's a tree to be removed that's right in front of the proposed deck. So that's the tree we're talking about, right, Betsy?
Yes. That's
Correct.
the one
Yes.
moving.
All right.
And it has multiple trunks.
Yes. All right.
So I believe, Michael, their request to you is instead of doing a 5 to 7 foot replacement tree, that you would be willing to do a couple of smaller ones.
Understood.
Maybe an equal number to the trunks that are there. Say if
Okay.
there are 8 trunks, then 8 smaller ones. Positioned so that when they grow to maturity, they're not right on top of one another. Maybe it could be added to those clumps that are out there already.
I understand.
That's
All right.
that's all. Thanks, Jamie.
You're welcome. Peter?
No questions.
All right. Kevin?
No questions.
Russ?
Question.
Maury?
No questions. It was a good project.
Courtney?
Why is this tree coming out? Is it necessary for the construction?
When I look at the plan, the tree is going to overhang the proposed deck. And it's very close to the existing house. So when you tear down the existing house, you cannot help but harm this tree. If you look at.
It's too close to the existing house.
It's too close. Courtney, it's got.
Down, Courtney.
Okay.
It has to come down.
Anything else, Courtney?
No.
Thank you. Pat?
No questions, thanks.
Mark?
I have no comment.
All right. Steve?
No comments.
All right. Jen, can you tell me if we have anything in the chat function?
We don't have any chats, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right.
I'll make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Second, Robin.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to take it under advisement. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Rooney, aye.
Maury,
Fellow Hawks eye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Russ,
Robbins, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
All right, it is unanimous. Thank you, Mr. McGrath.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Mr. Chairman, can you hold on 1 second?
Holding.
Thomas or Adriana, I only have remove Mike, and I know he has another hearing. Can you put him back in the attendee column if you don't mind? Thank you. Oh, he just went down there himself, I think. See if you get back in there. Okay.
Kick him out of the room, but not the building.
Oh, wait, he's coming back. He's Dairy Lane. I'm sorry.
He's next, isn't he?
Yeah, he's the next one. Mike, I'm coming to get you.
All right, are we good? We can move on?
Yep, we're good. He's back.
All right. Next up,
Sorry about that, Mike.
Margaret and Alvitas Mikulski. Mikulski Realty Trust, 2019, 9 Darrell Lane, North Falmouth, Mass. For permission to construct and maintain a concrete wall and steps, to reconfigure an existing patio, to relocate the existing septic system, to remove existing stairs and stone riprap, to install fill and all associated demolition, excavation, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
Yes, I promoted Mr. McGrath up to present the project to the board.
Excellent. Mr. McGrath, you're up, sir.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen. I thought I was going to share the screen. My name is Mike McGrath. I work for Holmes McGrath. We prepared the notice and the plans for 9 Darrell Lane, North Falmouth. This is an existing plan of the existing conditions. This is Rand's Canal down at the bottom.
Mike, you're not sharing your screen.
What?
Don't be selfish.
I'm trying to.
It's okay. Take your time.
You're there.
There you go.
Can you see it?
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Yep, we can get it
So,
now.
This is Rand's Canal here, and this is Darrell Lane in North Falmouth. There's an existing house here, and what I should do is start and describe the project. I have I'll share this. It's a privately zoned land, about 1,500 square feet. That's a mistake. It's bigger than that. It's developed an existing single-family house, porch deck. It lies within a AE zone, elevation 15, and is a part that's above the wetland resources area, land under the ocean, a coastal beach, salt marsh, coastal banks, bordering vegetated wetland, and land subject to coastal storm flowage. So here's the bordering vegetated wetland. Is bordering vegetated wetland. This is a road. This is Rand's Canal. There's a beach over here, and there's a coastal bank that's in this. The coastal bank I'm going to trace. This is a man-made coastal bank in here, and there's another man-made coastal bank here, and the coastal bank sort of wrapped around. There's a 50-foot resource area A here, and a 50-foot resource area B that's 100 foot back from the coastal banks. So what do we propose to do? And what we're going to do is basically the house can be torn down, a new house constructed. Whoops, I don't know what happened. Oh, I love this program, believe me. How did I lose it? How? I don't know what happened to me, but can you see my screen?
We see a Zoom screen.
Mike, is my shared screen gone?
It's gone, Mike.
Oh, I love this program this much. It says all right, let me see if I can. God, I'll tell you. It says I'm sharing, so I'll start over. Share, and I'll hit this. Can you
There you
see
are.
the sharing?
Yes.
All right. So the bottom line is that if you've been to the site, it's obvious that when the house was built in the 80s, they built stone riprap and they had a walkout basement. And they actually mined out the area so that so you could easily walk through. And what we're going to do is basically build a concrete wall at the edge of it and then fill that whole area in so that we're going to protect the house from the flood waters. If you look at this, this is there's a walkout here, and we're going to basically fill this whole area. We're going to remove all of the riprap that's buried and remove the stairs, then basically put clean fill in here. There's about 900 cubic yards. And what we're basically going to do is restore the landform to what it was before the house was built. This is good as far as the bylaw is concerned, because now the house will not be subject to being hit by flood zone. So like I did just describe it. Now, there is an existing septic system, and we're going to alter the location of the septic tank to put it here. There's an existing soil absorption system here, and by moving this, we're getting it further away from all the wetlands. So that's a positive. And so there's about 960 yards to be filled to install it. There's an overall reduction in pervious area of 171 square feet. So I do not believe we need any mitigation plan. So we don't think it's going to have any adverse effects because it provides a greater level of protection in the interest of storm damage and flood control. Plus, it meets the performance standards of your regulations. So I'd be happy to answer any questions concerning this project.
Thank you, Mike. Can you please stop sharing? Jen and/or Kevin?
I'll start, Mr. Chairman. So does everybody understand what's happening? They're bringing in about, what do you say, Mike, about 7 feet of fill?
I said 960 cubic yards of fill.
I know, but the top of the wall is elevation 16.5, right? And your spot grade's like 9.2, so that's around 7 feet.
Yes.
Okay. Do you know what the elevation of the deck is?
No, I don't have that in front of me. But it's a substantial amount of fill, but at the same time, it's the right thing to do in the long run.
Okay. When I spoke to Tim today about the project, they're going to have to kind of stabilize that when you bring all that fill in. So that fill's not going into those two little wetland areas at all. How are you going to stabilize all that fill?
I think it'd be appropriate that we agree and you specify that we'll put on erosion control blankets on the surface, rather, not blankets, but erosion control surface on the downhill fill slope, and it should be installed as soon as possible and maintained until the vegetation is grown.
Okay, and do they have any plans to plant those side slopes at all with some shrubs? I mean, you are real. I know you're not like increasing any impervious surface, Mike, but you are altering that landscape quite a bit. I understand that you said they excavated it out when they built the house, but that was a long time ago. So this is pretty stable. So it would probably be a very good idea to put some shrub materials on those side slopes near those wetland areas.
Well, the best thing to do is basically get a very good grass layer and then intersperse shrubs. You know, shrubs alone in mulch are not gonna hold.
In what?
I'm sorry, shrubs with mulch will not hold. You need to have something like a grass cover to hold it.
I understand that. Did you say mulch?
Most of the time when people plant shrubs, they plant them in mulch. And so I'm saying that would not be appropriate. So I think it's
No,
appropriate.
but you're gonna have that erosion control blanket on there.
That's right. That's, to me, that would be enough.
Okay, well, the staff thinks you probably should put some shrubs and grasses in. I get the grasses, Mike.
Okay.
To kind of see that on a plan before they do that.
All right.
Okay.
Yes.
And that's all, Mr.
Okay. Kevin, do you have anything to add?
Nothing to add to that.
Okay. Jen, there was just a comment that popped up from the homeowner, I believe.
We will be supporting the slopes with boulders from the sides.
But yet the application says. to
Mike,
remove-
that's not particularly shown on the plan that you're going to be supporting that slope with boulders. So that was a comment from the property owner, I believe.
I think it would be most likely the best thing to do is get the erosion control blankets down, vegetation, and sometimes scatter some boulders across there. That would be an effective way of doing it.
Well, now I'm kind of concerned with this whole boulder. I don't want to see these slopes become like almost little revetments. So
And
I see the placement of the boulders on a plan.
all right,
That's kind
I
of, that was just, I understand, you know, the aesthetics, but I don't want these to turn into little stone, the sides to turn into stone walls.
okay,
It's not how your plan is drawn.
that's correct.
Yeah, okay.
All right,
Done for now, Mr. Chairman.
thank you. All right, Steve, I'm gonna start with you for comments.
Thank you. I really couldn't follow the fill. We're going to fill the house up to the top of the retaining wall, which will be at 16.5 feet. And from there out, it's going to be graded out to meet the existing sidewall grades. Is that correct?
What the plan shows is, again, there is a walkout there's a gap where you can walk from elevation 8 right up to the house at 9.5. And what we're going to do is take out the retaining walls and the stairs and fill it so that the floodplain then will not touch the house. So that's a positive thing to do. And what I just agreed to is that we will clarify and revise the plan to show how we're going to retain the slope. But there's going to be the grade at the house is going to be over 16, and it's currently 9.5. So that's almost 7 feet of fill up against the face of the house. There's going to be a wall constructed to retain it.
Steve, that deck is almost going to be like at grade now.
Right. So the lower level, which is currently has external access, won't have access?
That's right.
Well,
Okay,
actually, no, it will have access, I believe, because that concrete wall is going to be at the edge of the decks.
Right.
And I believe there's going to be a set of, if you look at the
Oh,
plan,
that's right.
they
she's
have a
correct.
set of stairs.
Yes,
It
there's a
comes
set of
up.
stairs down.
But they'll be
Yeah.
completely in the dark.
Correct.
Okay. All right. I just couldn't follow that, but yeah, those are my questions. So you're going to put in 7 foot of fill out to the 16-foot grade line
Contour.
contour. Correct. All right. Now I understand what it was. Those are
Steve,
my
I had a
questions.
problem too. I had to call Tim Santos to have him explain it to me because I'm like, what am I looking at here?
Well, it's reinforcing. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else, Steve?
No, that was all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Mark?
Mike, are you going to show a planting plan for that area, which will maybe just be grass, all the filled in area?
What I basically agree with is that we have to bring in a plan that shows erosion control blankets with grass seed and shrubs, a mixture. And there may be some landscape boulders, but scattered on the slope.
Okay, that's good. And I presume you're not just bringing in sand, Cape Cod soil.
What's wrong with Cape Cod soil? No, I understand your point, but there's once it's planted, it should have some resistance, especially when you think about that there's some pretty heavy vegetation between Rand's Canal and this landform.
Mhm.
I don't imagine there'll be much of an erosion issue. It's a rather gentle slope also. And with an erosion control blanket, it should be just fine. That's all.
Thank you. Maury,
I just think the jute mat in planting that would probably be stabilize it. It is a lot of fill. I understand what they're trying to do. I don't think there's a great issue with diversion of flood waters because there aren't any real houses right next to it. But I do think that they should not be putting a line of boulders like revetment. I can see if they're just landscape feature stones. Other than that, I think it's fine.
all right. Peter,
It looks fine to me.
Russ,
No question.
Betsy.
I have some questions. This is, am I correct? The building people on the board, about 15 yards per 10-wheeler.
15 to 20.
So, okay, let's say it's 20 into 1,000. We're talking about 50 10-wheelers. What's the access to get the fill to where you want to put it?
Well, the bottom line is that the house faces north. So the on the westerly side, there's lawn almost all the way to the all the way back. So the obvious access would be on the left side or the westerly side of the house when you stand and face it from Darrellin Lane.
So the fill would want to be brought in before you change the septic tank.
It'll have to be.
So could you put that access point on the plan?
Yes.
And so you also have a row of arborvitae there. And I don't know how much other vegetation is there, but presumably any vegetation that's destroyed by bringing the fill in will be replaced.
There's sufficient space there that they can get by the arborvitae. There's 37 feet to the sideline and there's only like 8 feet of arborvitae. So it would seem to me there's sufficient space where they will identify the route that the trucks will use in order to get back there. We'll show it on a revised plan.
Okay, and my other question, well, I have a couple of questions. There, you do have some nice trees on the slopes on either side, and at least one of them is labeled proposed tree protection. I think we ought to document where those trees are and make sure that they all make it through this process.
There's no question that my plan shows, and the colored exhibit that you saw earlier shows that the northwest of the existing house is a 28-inch tree that's at the edge of the fill. We show it surrounded by basically tree protection. And there's another one further out at 22 inch. We're showing that. And there's basically north of the easterly face, there's a 26 inch, and we're showing that that's going to be preserved. So we are, what that means is generally they put in snow fence plus some hay bales so that the equipment doesn't harm the tree.
Okay, I just want to make sure that the trees make it through this process. Or if they don't make it through, we know what we've lost and then it's replaced.
All right, I mean, they on this case, they're clearly labeled with the diameter, so you could easily condition that.
Yeah. And I guess I kind of agree with Mark that this probably isn't like pure sand. The soils here, I mean, I guess I'd ask Courtney and Russ and Maury who deal with the soils. I just want to make sure that it's, you know, what you put in there is compacted so it doesn't slump down in the future. But I don't know how to, I don't know enough about how to, I know how to move, I know how people move dirt around, but I don't know what happens once it gets moved to somewhere new and is compacted.
Can I speak to that as an engineer?
Yes, please.
When man compacts soils, there's no question that sand can be compacted, but it's also called cohesionless. And the bottom line is the soils that compact the best are sand with a small amount of silt, which used to be called hardening. So the bottom line is that when water hits bare sand, it erodes away quickly. So as soon as the vegetation is established, then the vegetation and topsoil has to be destroyed before it reaches the sand. The other thing we could do is specify that there be, some layer of subsoil, or which is basically a sand silt mixture underneath the lawn and or on that slope, and that would help increase the resistance from a storm event. But at the same time, this faces, north, and it's going to be very, it's not looking at an open ocean, so I'm not really worried about wave effect. But I'd be happy to add a section that shows that there's subsoil added to underneath the topsoil on the slope.
Well, I'm sure your client's going to spend a lot of money on this. And I want to make sure it's a project that lasts. And you know a lot more than I do about what needs to be done to make sure that happens. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Kevin?
No questions.
Pat?
No comments.
Courtney?
I'll just follow up to Betsy's point. I think the logical thing would be to specify that as the fill is installed in that area, that it's compacted in lifts of every foot or two, so that once it's all gets grade or rough grade, then it's not going to slump anymore, and then you just put loam on the top and seed it or whatever is going to be done.
Okay. Mike, did you say the new fill would be planted as lawn?
What I described is that the downhill slope, I said would have to have erosion control measures. The flat area should be lawn. The upper, between the house and the top of the slope top of the fill
Mhm.
lawn.
Thank you. Jen, are there any questions in the chat room?
Sorry, there was a helicopter flying over my house.
No.
There's no additional chats. Mike, are you gonna revise the plan to show us that construction access and jute matting and
Yes. And it's,
shrubs and boulder placement?
so the question is, are these revisions enough to require a continued hearing?
Yes, I think they should. Could you?
Then I request a continuance to the next available date.
Well, the next available is the 1st. It's next week. Could you get me something fairly in short order that I could get to the board? If not, Mike, it's up to you. You can have July 1st and July 15th. It doesn't matter to me.
It has to be July 15th because we have some really pressing matters that I'm not sure I can get it to you by Tuesday.
Okay. No, that's fine. I was just giving you the option because they're not like major changes, but I do have some concerns with that boulder placement. So
I understand the commission's concern.
Okay.
So at the request of the applicant, I make a motion to continue this to July 15th. Gladfelter.
Bird second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to continue until 7:15. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Ernie, aye.
Maury,
Carlo Hawks, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Russ,
Robbins, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
All right, this hearing is continued until 7:15. Thank you, Mr. McGrath.
Thank you, Mike.
All right. Next up, New Silver Beach Association, Inc., 0 Moses Road, parcel/lot number 00093A to 93E, 96, 97, 98, North Falmouth, Mass. For permission to perform maintenance, including minor grading, raking, screening, and cleaning of the existing coastal beach above mean high water. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I promoted Mike Borselli up to present the project to the board.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Michael Borselli from Falmouth Engineering, and I represent the applicant. With your permission, I'll share my screen.
Please.
So the plan before you shows the majority of the beach area that is owned and used by the New Silver Beach Association. To the left side of the plan, you'll see a indication of a channel entrance. That's the channel entrance into the town docks inside Wild Harbor. To the east of the jetty and to the west of the east of the jetty over to a groin at the edge of Ocean View Avenue is the area of Wild Harbor and the beach area. So the wetland resources include land under the ocean, a coastal beach, and then there's a dune system indicated on the plan as well. There's a sandy beach. Ocean View Avenue is a public road, and neighborhood uses and enjoys this beach for recreational purposes. There are a series of privately owned strips of land, some of which want to participate, and we've only applied for permission to do work on the sections where we've received letters authorizing participation, and those were attached to the application. One of those owners, and I'll zoom in, is the town of Falmouth. which is this lot, which is adjacent to the jetty. And on May 18th, I went before the Board of Selectmen. We had requested that they grant the license to allow work to be performed on that beach. At the May 18th meeting, they voted to allow licensing so that they could conduct beach cleaning, subject to your approval and issuance of an order of conditions. So we expect to get that written document, and we'd also expect you, if we don't, to present that to you before we can do the work. This is a redo of work that was applied for and received permission for via an order of conditions several years ago. We're basically proposing to do the same exact activities. There is actually one other section owned, one other section on another plan that I'm sharing now that is further to the east, that shows Silver Beach Avenue, and the beachfront in front of Silver Beach Avenue is also proposed and was also discussed with the Board of Selectmen. So that area, we also would like to perform the beach maintenance activities. We received a staff report from Conservation Commission staff, and we reviewed it, and I think all of the documentation in the staff report, including for your reference, I believe, previous order of conditions findings and special conditions, and also special conditions that I believe staff suggesting would be incorporated into any new order of conditions that you might issue. There was one specific question about from the staff to, I believe, me, about what I meant by removal of debris. And what I meant by that was during the raking and cleaning process, there's bound to be litter, you know, stuff that gets up on the beach, stuff that gets left behind by beach goers. So that's what I mean by debris. I certainly recognize and understand the importance of the rack lines. So I would expect that you'd want to incorporate the same condition that you did in the previous order about maintenance of that 10% of the rack line, because it's a food source for some beach birds that feed on the beach. The construction access would be via the roads. There'd be fencing installed to protect the dunes. We'd certainly expect a condition that is recommended in here that all that be done and staked prior to any beach activities. There was also a comment about the placement of the existing lifeguard chairs. We understand the concerns raised by your staff about that. There's actually a photo in the caption, photo just below a caption about staff comments. We understand that concern. And Mr. David O'Keefe, who's representative of the New Silver Beach Association, I think he's in the background, Jen, and he may, if there's questions for him or if he needs to speak, I think he should be there if he needs to be impaneled. But I think that sums up my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Should I stop sharing, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, please. Jen, you wanna
Mike, I don't see a Mr. O'Keefe here. I only see two people that I don't know who they are, a George T. and a gentleman named Steve. So I'm not quite sure where Mr. O'Keefe is.
Okay, well, you saw the email exchange about your concerns, and I'm sure that Mr. O'Keefe's gonna take the proper actions necessary.
Okay. So Mike, we're gonna, few things. And I do wish Mr. O'Keefe was here so we could speak directly to him. But when we amended the permit the last time to allow for the seaweed removal, they were supposed to email us when they did that. That did not happen. So a lot of the conditions that we put in the last project, weren't really followed. So it's imperative for them to follow them again, because if not, this will probably be the last permit the staff will recommend if they continue to follow the conditions in their permit. I'm gonna need you, Mike, you can't really answer that, but I'm gonna need you to revise the plan for me. I need to show a location of the lifeguard chairs. It really is very disturbing to the staff that the association puts the lifeguard chair on town property with a big sign that says private beach members only. That is not appropriate. Those lifeguard chairs were not mentioned at the Board of Selectmen's meeting. They were not told they were going to be there. And it really is unfortunate, and those do need to be relocated on association property. If they wanted to go and see if the Board of Selectmen would give them permission to block public access on a public beach, that they can go and try to do that. But this board is not going to allow those chairs to remain there without authorization from the BOS.
Sure. I think Mr.
So I
O'Keefe-
think that's very clear that you cannot put private beach members only on a public beach. So I'm going to need those chairs, 1, to be removed before they start work, and 2, I'd like a revised plan from you showing a new location, just so going forward, the association, whoever's in charge next year or the year before, has a very clear understanding of where those lifeguard chairs can go.
Understood.
Thank you. I do have a question, Mike. How are you going to jump Healer's property? So you have your little, so let's go back to the screening part. We've had a couple of years now, the use of these machines that sort the cobble out of the beach and kind of change that composition and volume of that beach, so that the use of any sort of machine that digs down and removes those cobbles out is going to be prohibited.
Yes,
Because that just increases the erosion.
I understand that. Yep.
Addition about the rack line for the shorebirds, and I know we always get the comment, and I'm gonna say this for the public, whoever's watching tonight, is that the commission requires a percentage of seaweed to remain on the beach for the migrating shorebirds. The shorebirds are not here in the wintertime, when people are like, well, you can leave the seaweed on the beach in the wintertime and that's fine. Well, they're not feeding in the wintertime. They're feeding now, and they do need to have enough energy stored to make their migrations back down south and back into the Caribbean. That wasn't really for you, Mike. It was for people who are watching us. So that's kind of why the commission requires, no, that's not kind of why, that is why the commission requires a percentage of that kind of wet rack to remain. We went through the lifeguard chairs. So how are you going to, if you are doing, like, you're using a screening machine? Oh, and the lifeguard, we were told today that the association is hand raking the beach. So they really shouldn't be doing that without an order of conditions. So you're going along and you've got permission from the town and from, I'm assuming, those 5 skinny strip property owners.
Yes.
Yep. And then you have the one you don't have permission from. How are you going to cross that property?
Well, as of the application, we'd simply have to stop. We'd have to stake out the line, unfortunately, and not do any work on his beach area. Ironically, so we want to proceed if the board can close the hearing, but ironically, Mr. Healer, we received a letter from him yesterday. So it was too late. He was non-responsive and time was of the essence, as you can imagine, given the fact that there's a 20 close tonight, we're not likely to get an order for 21 days. So as of right now, we're not asking for permission to do that section. We just simply won't do that section and they'll have to take care. But ironically, we have permission, but I don't think I can tonight ask you to allow that as part of our application unless I can.
Well, Mike, I'm going to require a revised plan showing the locations of those lifeguard chairs.
Sure, but I thought I was
And I
hoping
kind of
you'd
want
be
to
able-
see that prior to closing this hearing. That's just really upsetting to try to block access. So staff feels kind of strongly about that.
Well, I could give you a revised plan by the close of this week, and I could also include the letter from Mr. Healer.
So you could have the July 1st, as long as I have a plan showing those lifeguard chairs, I'm fine. I want to be able to reference that. So, I mean, if you gave it to me at the end of the week and we could put you on July 1st and everything would be fine. I'm fine with that, Mike.
Well, I don't know that I have a choice, and I don't want to rock the boat, so to speak, for 1 week. So we could at least kill two birds with one stone, no pun intended about the migratory birds, but we will have permission for the healer.
Oh, good.
We have permission for the healer lot now, so.
Okay, so we can just roll healers permission in and
Sure.
permission. That'll be fine.
And I'm sure we can come up with a location for the lifeguard chairs.
Yeah, that would be good.
Okay.
Mike, you know, the standard conditions when these kind of, there was something in your, so all you're removing is like debris, trash, right? You're not removing any material, any beach material or anything, correct?
No, we understand about the cobbles and the structural integrity, so that's expected to be a condition. Yes.
Okay. We're also going to have to approve the person doing the work prior to them doing the work. Okay.
I can report that. I'll report all of this to Mr. O'Keefe in hopes that he can maybe get the information and I can submit it prior to the next hearing.
Yeah, if you could get, if they have an individual in mind to do, you know, we'd like to kind of know that this person kind of knows what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
We've run into a couple of problems over the past couple of summers, so I don't want to
I have a
be running into
recommendation.
those problems again.
I do have a recommended contractor that I think you'd approve of. So I'll speak to him about.
Okay, that would be great. Okay, I think that's all I have.
Jamie, can you hear me?
Yes,
Who was that?
Maury.
Oh, I think that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Kevin,
Okay.
anything? Newton?
I was just gonna ask you how you could skip over, you know, methodology for skipping over that small parcel, but I think that was addressed.
Okay.
Jen, are you clear on the machine that they intend to use for the process?
No, not yet. So that's why Mike's gonna get me that information for the next hearing.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's
I
gonna be
was
real-
approached by an individual last year, or asked by an individual last year that he was going to do this site. And we had to stop them because they didn't have a valid order of conditions. So if it's the same gentleman from down Cape. You know, we'll review the machine that he uses.
I'm hoping that I can recommend the same contractor who does the town beaches. And he's very reputable and you know him, but I want to speak to the owner first.
Did we lose Maury? Oh, no, Maury's there.
Are you all set, Jen?
Yes.
All right, I'm gonna open up the comments. Maury,
Maury has no volume. She's working on that right now.
you just spoke, I heard her.
I know. Here comes Art.
All right,
Maury for right now.
all right, we'll come back to Maury then. Pat, we'll start with you.
Yes, Mike, do you think you need to then amend your notice of intent to include healer? It's just a technical.
Nothing.
you don't include lot 95 in the notice of intent?
I think I can handle that by my testimony and writing a letter that identifies him as a participant. The abutters notifications within 100 feet are covered because of the abutting lots. The same number of abutters would be notified.
I wasn't implying that you needed to do new notices. It's just that the order of conditions, if it reflects the notice of intent, it needs to be highlighted. That's all. That lot 95 is also included
I hear
in
nothing.
the order of conditions.
Okay.
It just went dead.
Are you suggesting I revise the, I can revise the,
No, I mean, you could just send some sort of correspondence amending the intent.
yep, I will do that.
Anything else, Pat?
No other comments, thanks.
Thank you. All right, Maura, you up yet?
She's frozen right now.
All right.
Oh, no, she's moving her head. Maury, can you hear us? Maury?
All right, we're gonna come back. Russ?
Jamie, can you hear me?
Yes.
I got nothing.
Excuse me, Russ. Yes, Maury?
Yeah, we just did Maury.
What happened anyway?
Go ahead, Maury.
She can't hear us now.
Oh,
Well, I can't hear you. I hear nothing on my end.
We hear you.
And go to
did
bed.
Tom Brianna pitch in? Thank you. All right, Russ?
Yeah, I've got no questions. I think Jen said it all, especially with the signage and the lifeguard station. Very good.
All right, Mark?
I have no comments.
Kevin?
No questions.
Peter?
No questions.
Steve?
Questions? Thank you.
Courtney?
No questions. I'm
No, I'm done for the night.
I think it's a problem.
No, he says they can hear me.
All right, Betsy?
Yeah, I have a question. So how does the Mike, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, how does the machine,
I have no,
how does the machine get from Silver Beach Avenue to, no, Ocean View Avenue to Silver Beach Avenue, which is the other place that you want to clean?
Yes, it
I'm done
actually,
for the evening because
if I zoom in on this Silver Beach Avenue, this is a paved access to the water. They would just unload here and gain access
Oh,
right
alright.
through here. There's no need to traverse from Ocean View, which is further west.
Okay, so, so the next part of that is, so my understanding would be if any of us were to go down to either of those public beaches and we were to look to that whole stretch that has houses,
well,
that isn't
but
part
Mike,
of
all
this,
right, whatever. Okay,
that
well,
would not be cleaned. Is that correct? I mean, I realize this isn't you or your clients, but those people have not asked to clean that part of the beach. Am I
But
correct?
they were asked and they were non-responsive. They were asked.
Yeah, what I'm saying is,
I'm
they
done.
don't have, I won't put you on the spot, Mike. I'll put
Close
Jen on the spot. Jen, those people have permission to clean that beach?
I'm sorry, Betsy. I was trying to help Maury out. What people?
So the people between Ocean View and Silver Beach Avenue, where those houses are,
Yes.
they all opted to be out of what Mike just presented to us. So
No.
Mike- Yes, they did. Isn't that correct, Mike?
Yes.
No, she's talking about Mike. I thought you gave us permission in there from, We have permission from the Noonans. We have permission from those people, Betsy. It's in the notice.
It's not on the plan.
Yeah,
None of the
Oh.
people in the houses gave permission, Jen. Isn't that correct, Mike?
No.
that is correct.
What do you
They do not want to participate in the cleaning. They were gonna allow access if you needed.
Oh,
it.
got it. I'm sorry. I'm reading these letters real quick. Okay.
We don't need that access.
But if
So
you
that-
did, they'd allow you to traverse across there.
Yeah, but it's not really practical because of the groin.
Exactly.
Yes.
So my question is, if we were to go there, those parts of the beach should not be cleaned.
That's correct, unless there's a change of heart and we file a request to amend the order of condition, which I have no knowledge of any of those folks wanting to participate.
Okay. I just,
Sorry about that, Betsy. I
They
got,
had participated in
out
the
because
last, they had participated last time around, but for whatever reason, they did not this time.
okay.
well, I'm just concerned that there are a number of sort of private homeowner associations who do come to us to ask for permission and things regulated. And there are other homeowner associations that have beaches have chosen not to come in front of us. And I'm just pointing out that should we see those beaches, I think we'll report it to the town staff. There's a reason why we ask for these things to be done in a certain way.
Yes, and there's a reason I didn't identify them with the language that describes the work. Because there's no intention to do that.
Okay. Thank you, Mike.
That was my only question. Thanks, Mike.
Sure.
Okay,
I'm done, Jamie.
thank you. Jen, is Maury up yet?
No, I think Maury got a little frustrated. We could hear her. She could not hear us. There's something wrong with her technology. So, she has left the meeting. She can't participate. She can't hear us right now.
Okay. Did you have any questions?
Did office to help her, but I think she left before that, came in. So,
Okay, so she won't be on the quorum this time.
no.
Okay. All right, are there any public comments, chat?
There were no chats.
Okay.
So
Uh,
you want a motion?
My understanding is we're looking for a continuance till 7/1, Mike, is that correct?
Yes, please, if it's, which is
Next week.
next week's. I can't honor the 1 week submittal, obviously, but I can certainly get it in before Friday, if that's okay.
Jen?
Yes, that's fine.
Thank you.
Okay.
So moved, Gladfelter.
We have a second.
Bird, second.
Who was that?
Oh, Maury's back, I think.
Bird will second it.
Thank you. All right, do we have a motion and a second to continue until July 1st? Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, I.
Mark,
Aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Russ,
Robbins, aye.
Steve.
And
Maury's back.
Okay. So we are continued until 7/1 for this hearing. Thank you, Mr. Borselli.
Thank you very much.
All right, next up. Charles Nickerson, estate of Mary A. Nickerson, 89 T-Ticket Path, T-Ticket Mass, for permission to remove and replace 3 trees, to remove a small stone wall and install a larger retaining wall, to expand the current deck and remove a set of stairs, to raise, R-A-Z-E, an existing shed and reconstruct a new shed, to construct an earthen berm, to reconstruct and widen the existing licensed dock, and to install mitigation plantings. Jen?
Yes, I just promoted Wayne Tavares up to present the project.
Okay, good evening. How are you? Looks like I'm blacked out tonight. Thank you very much for waiting for me and take me out of turn at another meeting tonight. I think the owner, Charles Nickerson, could be promoted too. I think he's there. Do you see him, Jen? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Wayne, and unless his name is George T. or Steve, everybody else I know in the attendee room, so he is not here.
Jen, I believe you just popped
Yeah,
in.
he is there.
Oh, is that him?
Charles Nickerson, is that what he said?
Yes.
Under Caitlin.
Got it. I see him. Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mr. Tavares.
Okay.
Wayne, you with us?
Muted.
Did we lose him?
No, he's there. He's just muted.
He's muted and he's got his video off.
Yeah. Oh,
Yes.
yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, all right. Fine. I'm sorry about the video. I don't know what happened. I'm usually on. This is a project that was explained. I'm going to go through and share the screen with you.
Yes, please.
I didn't touch anything.
Let's see. Oh. No, that's not right. Just when I thought I had.
Wayne, are you there?
Yes, I'm here and I'm sorry. I'm looking for my screen that I put up to share. Here we go. Yeah. Okay. I'm all set. Okay, I'm just going to show you some quick photographs. This is the boat ramp going down. You can see the dock at the very end. On the left is junipers.
Wayne, we don't see any pictures.
You don't.
No, we see your Gmail, Wayne.
Okay, you're in.
New share. I'm in new share. How about this? Can you see that?
There you go.
All right, great. Okay, thank you. Yeah, this is, I just show you around. This is the ramp, boat ramp. Junipers are on the left. We have a planted area on the right-hand side with some yews, forsythia, et cetera. You see the dock in the background. There is the dock. It's been moved, obviously by ice. And if you look at the height of this, the new proposed height would be approximately the end of the dock, which corresponds with the neighbor's height of the dock. We have a rear deck. That is where the stairs will be removed and elevated to the same height as the deck. And I have one more picture and then I'll get to the plan. Well, let me go through the staff report. Here's the drawing. Sorry, let me do the drawing. That was a way of, Kevin, what's the way of blowing this up to a bigger size? Is Kevin there?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah.
Maybe near the bottom of your screen somewhere.
Yeah, I think we did it before and I can't
It's
remember.
at the top there. It pops up at the top of your, right there. You see that plus?
right next to your mouse.
Click on the
Okay.
plus.
I think that'll do it.
Zoom out.
Oh, yeah, thank you, guys. Thank you. Yep. Of course. Yeah. So we have this dock here. We have a boat ramp. Can you follow my arrow? And we have a retaining wall. All of these, Jen has confirmed, have been covered under an interim license granted around 2000, initiated in 1996. So starting with the dock, and I'll go through the staff report again, the size of the dock is not doubled. One of the problems at the end here is I turned this float around, whereas the survey showed it the correct way. It goes across, so we already owe you a revised plan. As far as the dock, it was not doubled in size. It's 28.5 inches wide, so we're going to the full 4 feet as the adjacent dock is. So it's being widened only and upgraded, of course, 60%. Same shape, same pattern. We have to follow that, of course. In this area, we have some ornamental plants. Now, they're not being mitigated, as the staff report says. We're just removing them, and we're turning this entire area into a mitigation area. We are removing this large tree because of its proximity and age to the leaching field, the overflow that's here, and the wall over here. So we'd like to remove this large oak. And we also have 2 pines that are leaning badly, very badly, and right on the shoulder of the slope right in this area. So those 3 trees we'd like to replace with these 3 amylancas. The staff report says that we should move them further away from the property line. So we can get into that in a minute. But that's the idea of this. I'm dividing this project into 3 parts. This part here is the top of the coastal bank, the 12-foot elevation. Everything below here is the coastal bank. So these are the items that we're dealing with is the dock, the mitigation, all mitigation for this entire project we are putting here in the coastal bank area. We also notice, because of the slopes here and the boat ramp usage, that as you come down the center line, that you've got a lot of runoff. So we propose to do a grass berm. Its cross section is here, if I can get it. It just falls off the plan on the right-hand side, but I'll show it to you. What we'd like to do is come down, have it dip, and take the water that comes down and pour it into the planting that's here, the native vegetation that we're proposing as mitigation, and also to split it in this area where there's a large group of junipers that are really holding this coastal bank together on this side. They're not native, but they exist. They're pre-existing ornamentals. We propose to cut those basically almost at half. We're going to cut 1/3 to 40% off the top of these in order to revigorate them from the bottom. There's no moving of them. There's no pruning, other than pruning. There is pruning, and that's it. The rest of this is all lawn. It's going to stay in lawn. It's going to be a Falmouth-friendly lawn. Mr. Nickerson does not use any fertilizer whatsoever. We have a proposed mitigation area here. I'm sort of getting ahead of myself. 3 Amelanker. Some viburnum, bayberry, and inkberry in this area. With a proper coverage, we are 602 square feet. There's a very large 20 to 22 inch caliper oak here. We're proposing not to do nothing. We do have a dead oak here. This is absolutely stone cold dead, and we'd like to remove it under this proposal. There is a shed that exists. You can just about see the shadow of it right next to this oak. We're going to relocate that shed, but we're actually going to demolish it, remove it, but use its area, 52 square feet, for the shed, plus the stepping stones, plus the wall that's below the coastal bank line, which is right here, comes out to 84 square feet. We'd like to move or relocate the shed to the A zone. Now we're above the top of coastal bank, so we'd like to relocate it here. We're using the Falmouth Building Code as far as size and and separation. It's a smaller shed. It's 84 square feet. And it has to stay 3 feet away from the property line. There'll be a new fence along the south side, dark line that you can see. And there's also a fence existing right on this line. It was erroneously put in. So the new survey shows that it's going to be put back into this area. We thought this mitigation area was nice because the owner has a large wooded area here that can't be built on anymore. And it makes a contiguous wildlife habitat in this area. And that's why the mitigation was put there. So the other items, now we're in the A zone. So this deck here has a set of steps that I showed you a picture of prior. Some of the pictures still show, here's that picture in a smaller light. And the owner would like to take the steps out, but use the footprint, no enlargement, but to use it and use it as a promontory and build it at the same elevation as the deck. So he can put out a table and some chairs and sit out there. No change in area or surface coverage. He already has these side steps that exist in this area. There's some ornamental planting going on over here, and there's a side slope problem going on down the side here. So we'd like to build a stone wall, and we've used those calculations in a table that exists here. You can see the table. And we've gone through top of coastal bank. We've gone through A zone and B zone, and we've rectified all of the areas of coverage. There's not much. This is basically an upgrade. This is Charles Nickerson's mother's and father's house that he's doing this for, still in the estate of his mother. So it's a facelift, basically is what it is. So he does want to bring this historical dock back to the way it should be and update it to current standards. That's the biggest task here. The rest of it is housekeeping, a shed that's appropriate because he's just replacing this existing shed. And then as you come to the front yard, the wall continues up into the B zone. Now we're into the B zone from this line to here. I staked out all these elements and took the coverage and used it in the table again. 3 arborvitaes are being removed. 2 maples are being added. Staff says to move them further away from the property line. And I think we can do that more so here than here. We're changing and proposing a new entrance, a little bit of landscape architecture. And then this walkway is being abandoned, this shaded area here for this. The 2 of them came out to be within 1 square foot of coverage of each other. So we use that area of coverage into the same calculations. The front area needs a new planting. It's all ornamental planting. We'd like to have the owner put new ornamental plantings in. And the same goes for the back along the deck. This is all overgrown with yews and hydrangeas and so forth. And it's a smaller bed that would encircle the entire deck because he doesn't need these steps anymore. That's the size of the project. We have a cesspool in the back. We have an overflow in the back. That's one of the reasons why this tree would be removed. It's also towards the end of its stay. It's just too big of a tree for where it is. That being said, I want to address the staff reports. There's some things here to be changed. I put these in red. Can you read this? Is this on there? Yeah. So there was 3 trees, 2 pitch pines and 1 oak. Well, it's not the big oak we were talking about. It's the dead oak. They're all on the north side property line. They're to be removed. We expect no mitigation for the dead oak. It's dead. We just want to remove it. So we got 2 pitch pines here. And then it also consists of 215 square feet of ornamental planting. This will be replaced with mitigation planting. That's all correct. Then here's the staff comments. These are true. There's no DEP number. So we're forced to see you again anyhow. And I'm awaiting a letter from Division of Marine Fisheries regarding the dock. And by the way, on the dock, if you want me to go back, the dock is too low to provide for public access under the dock there, and there is no salt marsh there. So we're providing steps up to the dock and steps down on the other side. We're also waiting for a comment from the building inspector as to the proximity of the steps going down, the new steps, because they fall within the setback of the building code. Staff, this is redundant. The second statement is redundant on the first. I guess there's a little controversy here. It's a surveyor's judgment regarding the velocity zone. It is in the water no matter what. It cuts the deck in half the way that Steve Doyle drew it. And according to mapping, apparently there's no velocity zone at all in Perch Pond. So it could get better. It can't get worse. So I'll investigate that. There's a discrepancy in the existing conditions plan and the proposed plan. I just mentioned that at the end of the dock. The only change here is that the float at the end was longitudinal, and its configuration according to its interim deed is latitudinal. So we'll change that around. And then this statement here is kind of erroneous. It's replacing the 215 square feet with mitigation planting does not count. Well, we're not doing that. We're just saying we're removing ornamental plants in favor of native plants, and we're using the 215 calculation based on coverage that I've gone through on this plan. So ornamental plants being removed in favor of a mass volume mitigation plan. Why should this not be considered mitigation? It's just a note I wrote to myself and I'm sharing. And the shed is being mitigated for. Yes, it is. 84 square feet. We have it in the calculations. And it's in the A zone. So we've moved it from the coastal bank into the A zone, which is mitigation in its own right. And yes, the current square footage of the stone wall in Zone B is being used and included in the impervious calculations. It doesn't state that the 215 feet are being removed. Well, I'm telling you now, they are being removed in favor of the mitigation planting. And at the time that we were looking at this with the agent, they talked about the type of vegetation that was there. So I went back and I inventoried forsythia and yews and the plants that make up this 215 square feet. They're all to be wiped out and removed in favor of the plant list that I showed you earlier. And here's the statement that says that the 3 service berries and 3 Japanese maple should be further away from the property line. So I can move it, but not much because the ramp is over there. So I'll move the amylankers, which are adjacent to the boat ramp, 1 foot south, and do that on the plan as well. This question was asked, what is the top of the wall elevation? I drew a cross section and the wall is ghosted in there. And the only reason we weren't very specific is because the wall slopes. So at its highest, which is near the boat ramp and up inland, it's 6.05 feet. And then along Perch Pond, it's about 4.83 feet level. It's level along Perch Pond, and as it goes inland, it raises in elevation. And at what height was the junipers be pruned? And I'm saying 35 to 40% of the height to be removed and allowed to rejuvenate. And then through flow decking should be constructed on the marsh. And it's stated on the plan, it says through flow. So we have all that. I think we've addressed all these issues. We realize that we have to come back. I'm hoping to keep this as short as possible. And we realize it's a fairly straightforward and simple project. But I'll take any questions. You want me to put the plan back up?
No, if you would stop sharing, please.
Okay.
Thank you, Wayne. Jen, do we have a DEP number?
No, we do not, nor do we have the Division of Marine Fisheries comments yet, which I expect might change the height of this dock.
Okay. All right.
So staff is gonna go through, we're gonna take the easy ones, but the V-zone issue, Wayne, was not on the surveyor's plan, it was on yours. So basically, if you look at your cross section, you have VE 14. That is incorrect. This whole property is in the A zone. So it's not the surveyor's or Steve Doyle's plan that's incorrect. It's yours. A second pass through the flow through decking you have on it's on your upland, your cross section, correct? It says proposed steps to Stalt Marsh. And then under that with pass through. So it's not clear to us that the decking on the dock is going to be that 50% light penetration decking. So we wanted to make sure that that was clear.
I think what happened is I put through and flow somewhere else and it got erased. So I apologize.
Well, I don't see it on the plan anywhere other than that little cross section, and I'm looking right now if somebody else can find it.
Sure.
2, Wayne, you changed the plan again. So the plan you just showed with the float reconfigured, we didn't get that plan. Correct?
No, you haven't. No, that's why
No, I don't have it.
Yeah, I owe you a plan.
So you just showed us a plan that we haven't seen before.
No. You've seen this plan. What I'm saying is that the
Wayne, put your plan back up, please.
There we go. Okay, lead me to where you are.
I have
At the end of the dock, the float.
Yeah, right here.
It goes out straight. The plan we have has it kind of at an L.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I said longitudinal, and I made that mistake. That is my mistake.
And I just asked you if you just showed us and presented a plan that we hadn't seen before.
No, this is the plan of record.
Can you stop sharing, Wayne, for a second?
Sure. The surveyor's plan has it the other way, according to the doc. In fact, I had a discussion.
Wayne, what's the date on your plan that you just showed the board?
I have to share again. I'm sorry.
He has the same date. I have a different plan.
I have a different plan. What we're saying, Wayne, is you sent a different plan to us.
Okay. So what do you?
Okay.
Wow.
So we're looking at a different float configuration, and on the plan you're sharing, it looks different than the plan you submitted, but you have no revision date on that plan either.
Okay.
Problem.
All right. I will straighten that out.
Right where you are, go back down for a second.
Sure.
You see where you see your cross section, and you see where you have the flood zones, where you have VE 14. Your cursor's almost on it, Wayne. You were right.
Okay. I'm just blowing it up.
You see where you have VE 14?
Yes.
That's what the staff was talking about.
Okay.
Not the surveyor's plan. That note needs to be changed.
All right. I'll straighten it out with Steve. Sure. Absolutely. Okay.
It's correct on Steve's plan.
Okay.
So, if you could stop sharing again. So let's go to the planting. Big oak. The big oak that you show near the junipers. Why is that coming down again?
Because its root system is being encroached by an old overflow from one side, and it's going to be pushing over, if it hasn't already, the wall that we're talking about, the one that you asked for the elevations. So it's big. It doesn't belong there anymore. It's just way oversized. So we think we can mitigate it. We'd like to. And
you're mitigating for that large oak how?
With those 3 amyl anchors that are going on the north side.
And what's the diameter of that oak?
The diameter of that oak is about 20 inches, 18 to 20 inches.
So you're replacing a 20-inch oak with 3 serviceberry.
3 serviceberry.
I don't know if the board's gonna like that, but okay, we'll go through that. The junipers along that bank,
Mhm.
how high are you going to be quote unquote trimming those?
Okay, as I had mentioned before, we're going to take off a third to 40% of the height on
So
those.
you're
they're-
basically cutting them in half,
Almost, yeah.
almost. And how high would that be?
Well, you're at 4 feet. When I walk out there, they're about 4 feet. So you're going to be cutting them back to about 2 in order to keep the structure of the plant and get them to feather out again.
2 feet.
Well, yeah, if you're saying 50%, I'm saying 2.5 feet.
Well, those are in the coastal bank, or as you put it, the coastal bank and the buffer too. So
Yes.
not quite sure how the board's going to respond to taking 40% of a shrub layer in their jurisdiction. So
This is horticultural rules, Jennifer. In other words, those plants have grown unabated for 30, 35 years.
cultural rules?
Sorry?
Horticulture.
Oh, okay. I'm like, okay,
Horticultural
cultural
rules.
rules. Got it.
So it needs some invigoration. Certainly, the commission is not going to let us fertilize them. We don't want to fertilize them. They're doing well. They're healthy. They're holding the slope. They're holding behind the wall. So we just want to cut them back. That is proper means of doing it. And unfortunately, it's been 35 years since this has been done. So we're going to do it once and once right and let it come back so that they're rejuvenated.
So you won't be cutting them again. You're only cutting them once, and
Oh, yeah. That's all you have to do. 35 years from now, we'll all meet and we'll cut them again.
I have no response to that.
Okay.
You'll still be here.
Yeah.
So Wayne, when we were talking about you're removing vegetation on the coastal bank to put your mitigation plantings, that's what you stated, correct?
No, you got to state that again. What did you say?
You're removing vegetation on the coastal bank in the area where you want to put your service berries and your viburnums and your bayberries.
Yes, but they're all ornamental plants that have overgrown and not been properly.
Yes, I understand that, Wayne, but we had that discussion that the board usually doesn't like to see the removal of vegetation, whether it be ornamental or invasive, and then use that same area for mitigation requirements. So we've discussed that, and I said that the board would have to discuss that. So
okay,
the
well,
board's clear.
I have to discuss that. Wait a second. This is really contrary. I've never heard anything so ridiculous in my life. You're taking out ornamental plants in favor of native plants. And you're
Still
saying,
habitat and it's still vegetation.
yes, but it's not adding or detracting from stabilization or any performance standards that you have. In fact, you're enhancing it because you're using native vegetation in a shady area. Well, that's why the forsythia isn't growing well. And none of the other plants are growing well either because it's the wrong location. It was the right location years ago, but it's the wrong location now. So we're putting plants that are shade tolerant in there as a replacement.
Wayne, this board has never allowed the removal of invasives or even, kind of ornamentals, and then that area to be used as mitigation. We went through this on your last project in T-Ticket. I told you this was going to be a discussion. The board does not allow that. So the board will weigh in on that.
Okay, what would you say is appropriate for that area then? Leave the ornamentals? I'm
Not my
totally
project.
I'm glad I'm blacked out tonight. Wow, this is beyond me. That one is beyond me. Sorry. But
are you done?
I'm done.
Okay. So you're taking 40% of the junipers off. You're taking the large oak out because in your mind it's just too big. You're replacing.
No, the root systems are reaching towards the overflow. You've got to hear me out. And also they've also reached to the back of that wall. they're going to push the wall over. They reach to a point where they're encroaching on structures that are needed and historical on that site.
So the way, I'm just gonna stop. The wall, you mean the wall along Perch Pond Way?
Yes, the wall coming up, basically up the ramp. That's the closest part of that wall. Same wall, though.
What's your scale, Wade? I can't find it off the
That's 20 scale on that plan.
20 scale. So from where you have the oak to the wall is 35 feet. Where you have the center of the oak to that wall is 35 feet.
Mm-hmm.
You're telling me the root systems of that oak are 35 feet wide?
Yeah, I measured the one to the overflow. It's the same, it's closer.
The overflow is closer than the wall. Okay. Just trying to work through.
And don't forget that that's an
clarify
overflow.
some of your,
Yeah,
I'm just trying to clarify some of your comments, Wayne.
sure.
Okay. That's all, Mr. Chairman, for right now.
Kevin, do you have anything to add? Kevin Newton?
No, Jen laid out all of staff's concerns.
Thank you. All right. Jen, did Maury come back in?
She's here.
Lori's here. Yep.
Okay. Maury, do you want to start with comments?
Well, one of the issues I found right off is that the cesspool maybe should be included in the facelift, as Mr. Tavares says the property is having. You know, if the oak is encroaching on it, I'm sure it's probably has issues. That's number one. Number two, we have never allowed, Wayne, just for clarification, it's called restoration. So if you want to take out ornamentals and replace them with natives, that's done through our order of conditions, and we allow that. We do not allow vegetated areas to be taken out, and then you use that area as a calculation for mitigation. So I just want to clarify that.
Oh, that was good. Okay, that's because of the calculation that you would do that. All right, much better understood. Thank you.
That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Also, with the septic system, there may be time down the road that the owner may have an opportunity of hooking up to septic, but it's not in the near future. That's why one of the better upgrades would be to remove that system. But right now, there is the opportunity of septic passing through, and I think every one of us here would want to wait for that issue to come to fruition. Plus, the effluent of that overflow is probably another 15 feet downhill from that overflow.
Yeah, closer to the resource. So it's, you know,
Yes.
obviously impacting, you know, where. So I would just, with all the work that's being done and all the improvements on the property, environmentally, one of the most important things is upgrading the septic system. And you don't know when sewering is going to go through. So just you're making all the mess on the property now, why you wouldn't want to continue disrupting now instead of later.
Well, there'd be no disruption later. You'd have to fill everything in. If the sewer came through, that would take that entire onus of effluent off the backyard in the wrong area and place it in the best of all possible worlds. So there's hubbub about it, you know, discussion about it, and it might pass through in the next 5 years. But the way that town of Falmouth votes, or any town votes on betterments and so forth, there's no guarantee. So it sits there, and then it'll be filled in at the appropriate time. Maybe 5 years from now, I will have to come back before you.
I'm all done.
All right, Russ,
I'm good.
Courtney?
Yes, I got a second Maury's concern. I think you should seriously consider upgrading that septic tank. And I realize that it's a possibility that you'll have a sewer coming. When that'll be, you don't know. That thing could fail at some point, well before there's a sewer coming down the road, and then you'd be faced with having to put a a septic in anyway. The other part of that is that you would put a septic in the front yard most likely, which means you'd have to reorganize all of the internal drain lines. But you would have to do that anyway if you went about hooking up to a septic, very likely. So I think you should incorporate a new septic system as part of this. The other thing is, I'll reinforce Maury's comment about ornamentals. Yeah, if you want to replace those with natives, that's good, but that doesn't count toward your calculation of mitigation for whatever it is you're doing.
Understood.
No other comments.
Thank you. Steve,
No question.
thank you. Pat,
No comments.
Peter,
The T-ticket path neighborhood has been slated to be the next priority for sewering by the town. And that will incorporate T-ticket path and several other neighborhoods over by Green Pond and so forth. And that's the next stage of the town of Falmouth sewering project.
Oh, great.
And, that's no promise that it will ever come to that, but that's what the town is saying to us now. No further questions.
thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for that information.
Mark,
Well, I think we certainly, if we choose to allow that oak to be removed, replacing it with our two tupelos is kind of not adequate. It's a huge tree. It offers a lot of good wildlife capabilities. Secondly, I agree with everything Jen's been putting out. I noted this on my plan also, the stripping out a lot of vegetation in order to put in more vegetation and call it mitigation. Well, that doesn't cut it. Renewing that vegetation is okay, but you got to add mitigation also. Other than that, nothing.
Okay, great. Thank you.
thank you. Kevin,
No comments, Mr. Chairman.
Betsy,
I have some comments. So back to trees again. So the oak is a 20-inch oak. You said you're also going to remove 2 pines. How many caliper inches do we have there?
One pine is 8 inches and the other is 6.
So that's 34 inches. And so our regulations say caliper inch to caliper inch or tree to tree, somewhere in between. You're offering tree to tree. That's not acceptable to me, and I suspect it's not acceptable to most of my fellow board members. And so I would think seriously about which trees, and you can discuss that with staff and where they're going to go. The other comment I happened to be at the Board of Selectmen meeting like a week and a half ago, when you actually were at the meeting for a license from the Board of Selectmen. And I'm sure you'll recall, there was an extensive discussion about Chapter 91 and passage. And I think you've also had some other docs and had letters from Division of Marine Fisheries that they prefer the dock to be, I think it's 1.5 times the width. Is that correct, Jen?
That's why I think it's important to wait for the Division of Marine Fisheries comment letter.
Yeah, well, also, they're gonna have to go before the Board of Selectmen also, and that's a concern to the Board of Select, as it is to us, but just.
Yeah, can I just interject? The reason I was at that meeting for the other fellow, there was an omission some 20 years ago on that particular dock in East Falmouth of a selectman's letter and approval. This dock has selectman's approval already. So this one has all the certificates, all the bells and whistles needed. There will be no need to go back to the selectmen. However, to go to the Division of Fish and Wildlife, they give you an either or situation. And it's based on topography. It's based on whether or not you have a salt marsh. It's based on a lot of things. There's two criteria. The width times 1.5 above is for the public access and for light to penetrate through to the salt marsh. There is no salt marsh here. Plus the elevation wouldn't allow you to pass under this dock. So the other option is to create steps up to the dock, over the dock, and down the other side, which has been discussed, and I haven't heard any bad discussion about it, except on the other side, this dock was built too close to the property line, and it allows for steps down the other side, but we have to get permission or a variance from the building department to put the steps on the other side so close to the property line. So it's a decision by the zoning board or basically the building inspector. And I have already a note into him to rule on that or whether or not to ask us for a variance. So we have options. The dock adjacent, a bigger dock, it's a longer dock, it's fully up to scale, 4 feet wide, is at elevation 4.1, I think, 4.1. Steve shot that, Steve Doyle, the surveyor, shot the elevation. And our dock is at 4.2. And we're using that same elevation. The water has gone higher. He showed the cross section and the bathymetrics. So this is very appropriate height for this. And I think I showed you that picture of the dock. I know I showed it to you, of which the ice damage has pulled out the end of the dock. And it's so far out of the water now at 4.2, it looks funny. It looks funny because it's such a skinny dock and it looks out of place, but that is the appropriate height that this should be. If you go up any higher, in order to give that public access under the dock, it'll look like the railroad bridge over the canal. So it wouldn't be right. So they give us those two options, and I think what Jennifer says is correct. Let's get the feedback from Division of Fish and Wildlife on that.
Were you planning to show us where the Chapter 91 access would be? Where those steps would be?
Oh, that's on the plan. Yeah, they're on the plan.
But you don't have permission. You submitted this plan and you don't have permission for the far side. Is that correct?
Well, I have a discussion with the building inspector. It would be ill-advised. No, this is what variances are granted for. Yes, if we waited for that issue to take place, we'd be down the road another six months. So we're anticipating that we would get an approval and a grant that he says that this is appropriate because we are already non-conforming with that dock. So this just makes it non-conforming. So usually that's the way it's treated but you sometimes have to request that variance. Otherwise, there's no option. So if you want to raise it out of the water, you won't be able to, or the owner, excuse me, won't be able to get from the end of the ramp, the end of the dock, down the ramp to his float. It'll be too steep because he has to follow the footprint of what existed before. Exactly. That's where I made the mistake with the float at the end is wrong. So, but the ramp is correct. The ramp is only 10 feet long. And you can do some simple math to realize how steep that would be if that dock went any higher. So what we're talking about is good stuff, but we do need feedback from Division of Fish and Wildlife. Luckily, we don't have a salt marsh, and we are trying to provide for the public access.
But for the public access, you need to go up one side and down the other.
It's done. It's done. It's traditional. Go out to New Seabury. You'll see a ton of them.
No, I know how this works. I'm looking at your plan and I see you can walk up the stairs and you can get onto the dock, but you have to jump down the other side.
No, there's steps down. I show steps down the other side. They're Nantucket steps. The steps coming up from the ramp go straight up like we're all used to walking into our house. But because of the width problem on the other side, you step off to a platform and you bang a right going down, just like Nantucket steps. When you go to Nantucket, the steps don't go to the sidewalk. They go out to a platform and down the sides. It's the same type of step arrangement. And we're going from the from the wet part of it, or I should say the lower topography part, uphill, so we don't have as many steps. I could have designed it the other way. Then you have more steps and you're walking into the water. So that doesn't make sense.
I see you say you have it. I just can't find, I can't figure it out on the plan.
Bring that up again? You want me to bring that up?
Nope, I see it.
Oh, okay, you see it. Okay, thank you.
Just a lot going on in that one spot.
Yeah, it is, I know. 20 scale is tough for that. Maybe I could do a blow up of a 10 scale for the dock, you know?
I have a question, Wayne. You say you don't have to go back to the Board of Selectmen, but you're widening the dock by 3 feet, correct?
Yes, yeah.
So you're widening the dock. Have you reached out to the Board of Selectmen to see if they agree with your assessment?
Well, this is certainly not a scenario where they would possibly refuse. I can't see if you're following the same footprint and shape and so forth, and bringing it up to modern standards, whether or not they would have say. But yes, I guess I'm going to have to bring it up. It's a good point. Let's talk to them and see if that's what they want. They approved the last one, by the way. So I would imagine this would be a approval as well. But I'm just saying it's kind of redundant, I guess. But I will ask, I promise.
Betsy, did you have anything else?
I'm done. Thanks, Jamie.
All right. Jen, you all set?
Yes.
All right. Are there any public or chat comments?
No, not at this time.
Okay. So Wayne, my understanding is we're looking for a continuance. Is that accurate?
Yes. I'd like to continue it. I understand July 15th is available. Is that true?
It's going to be the 22nd, Wayne, because we have too much. We have one more hearing that's already requested later in the hearing for the 15th.
Okay.
So, that wasn't on the, because it just came in late this afternoon and we told them that was fine. So it would have to be the 22nd.
22nd, okay. That's fine. That's fine. That'll give me a chance to have some more dialogue with you. I'm going to revise this plan early and try to get together with you and then submit it a week before, of course.
Good plan.
Oh, I can't wait.
At the request of the applicant, I make a motion to continue this till July 22nd. Gladfelter.
Second.
Carlo Hawk, second.
All right. So we have a motion and a second to continue till 7:22. Wayne, you're clear on what you need and or that you will be speaking with staff for that clarification?
Exactly right. Yeah. And I apologize for being a little short tonight. It's my second meeting. So, and it's long. So thank you again for waiting for me. And I'm sorry. I thought it would be a shorter meeting than.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
Worries.
We have a motion and a second. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Me, aye.
Maury,
Carlo Hawk's, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Russ,
Robbins, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
This hearing is continued until 7:22. Thank you, Mr. Tavares.
Hey, thanks a lot. Have a good night. Bye now.
All right, next up. Continued hearings under a notice of intent. Dana Brown, 17 White Pine Lane, East Falmouth, Mass. For permission to raise RAZE an existing single-family dwelling and to reconstruct a new single-family dwelling and new Title V septic system. Jen, do you want to start?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is the applicant that had asked us late this afternoon to continue to July 15th, and we said that that date was available, so.
At the request of the applicant, I make a motion to continue to July 15th.
Bird, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to continue until 7:15. Betsy,
Lettles, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, I.
Mark,
Ernie, aye.
Maury,
Carlo Hawks, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Russ,
Robbins, aye.
Steve.
Aye.
All right, this hearing is continued until 7:15. Thank you. Next up is 69 Paola Drive. That has already been continued. I'm sorry, I skipped one. 160 Penzance was continued until 7:15, and then 69 Paola has been continued till 7:1. Therefore, next is Lucy Greer, 77 Barneck Road, Woods Hole, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to reconstruct an existing deck, replace an existing post and rail fence, and to conduct invasive species management on a coastal dune.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I am going to promote up Caitlin from Wilkinson Ecological. Here she comes. Oh, and Mike McGrath. Still with us. Poor Mike.
He's a persistent guy, isn't he?
Yeah.
How come we don't get to see Mike today?
He's being a snob. For the record, the quorum is all of us.
No.
save for Pat.
And Mark and Pat.
Are you
Good
sure?
evening.
I'm
Sorry.
positive. Mark wasn't here last time. He remembers he wasn't here last time.
Okay.
Sorry, Katrin.
Okay, hi, good evening. Katrina Higgins for the record from Wilkinson Ecological Design, and I'll start to share my screen here. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Okay.
We see you.
Okay, there you go.
There we are.
And I'll,
At Williams?
Oh, Middlebury College.
yeah, Middlebury.
Sorry, Courtney.
Dune.
Let's see.
Go Middlebury.
Okay, so just quickly, very briefly, I think because we heard all your comments in the last hearing and we've made two changes. The first is we clarified the note down here regarding the Rugosa rows based on your request. And then the second request was to strike out that note number 7 regarding Bayberry being maintained to an existing height. And there was also a discussion about the opportunity to allow the applicant to create view corridors, and we talked to the applicant and just in an effort for simplicity and to move things forward, we decided, and she decided that this made more sense to just keep the plan as it is and hopefully get your feedback today and move forward. So we're interested to hear any thoughts you may have.
All right. Jen, do you want to start?
No, I'm all set. I have no comments.
All right. Patron, you can stop sharing, please.
Oh, sure.
All right. All right. Comments, Betsy.
I don't have any comments. I'm ready to just move ahead with this one and close it.
All right. Courtney.
No comments other than Caitlin. When did you go to Middlebury?
I graduated in '99.
Great. Wonderful school. I was there in 1963, so a little older.
Nice. Loved it.
All right.
No other
Kevin.
questions.
No comments.
Maury,
No comments. Thank you for the changes.
Thank you.
Peter,
No comments.
Russ,
No comment.
Steve?
No comments.
All right, I concur. Catherine, thank you for addressing all the concerns. I'll
Thank you.
entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement. Gladfelter.
Word second.
Hey, Mike, we see you now.
Yes.
Oh,
Obviously,
haircut.
yeah, it's great.
We have a motion and a second to close the hearing. I'll take the vote. Betsy?
Gladfelter.
Hold on one second. I skipped a step. Do we have any public comments?
No chats.
Thank you. Okay, Betsy, sorry.
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney?
Word aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Mark? Oh, sorry. Mark, you're not on it. Maury?
Carlo Hawks, aye.
Peter?
Walsh, aye.
Russ?
Robbins, aye.
Steve?
Pat and I.
Is unanimous. The hearing is closed. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, request to extend the existing order of conditions. Michael G. and Cynthia C. George, 108 Gansett Road, Woods Hole, Mass, DEP number 25-4310, requesting a 3-year extension. Jen?
Mr. Chairman, normally we would not recommend a 3-year extension on a single family residence, but if you remember, this was the property that was referred to as that legacy property. It had the water feature in the middle of it, the huge house, the large restoration project.
The Wang Estate.
Yeah, the old Wang Estate. So we think it's appropriate in this case that a project of that size and complexity should have another 3-year. We're recommending a 3-year extension.
Has it started? The project?
Not get down there. I don't believe it has. I didn't get down there.
All right, but you guys are recommending 3-year?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'm going to ask for comments. Russ?
No comment.
Steve?
No comment.
Betsy?
No comment.
Courtney?
No comments.
Kevin?
No comment.
Mark?
No comments.
Maury?
No comment.
Pat?
No comment.
And Peter?
No comments.
I don't know why. I thought there was going to be some comments on that.
I make a motion to accept staff's recommendation of a 3-year extension.
I'll second.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to accept a 3-year extension. Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney?
Word aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Mark?
Groody, aye.
Maury?
Carlo Hawks, aye.
Peter?
Walsh, aye.
Russ?
Robbins, aye.
Pat?
Harris,
Pat and
aye.
I.
Steve, you're way ahead of me. All right, as unanimous.
I thought you
we
said
accept
Pat.
the extension. All right, next up, continued hearings under enforcement order. Andreas and Joan Spalaris, 78 Squibnocket Drive, East Falmouth, Mass. Violations of approved order of conditions / settlement agreement. DEP number 25-3466 and DEP number 25-4277. Jen, do you want to start on that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I promoted Arlene Wilson up on behalf of the property owner.
Okay.
So basically, we needed to continue this so that we could advertise for the other DEP number that was involved in this case. That was done on advice of your counsel, just so we can have a nice, clean record.
So this was not opened.
No, it was open and it was discussed, but we just kind of, just continued it to re-advertise it. So we did have a whole discussion about the wall.
Do we need a quorum?
What was that?
Do we need the quorum? Quorum?
Quorum would probably do. Do I have the quorum sheets for this one?
I think we were all here.
Except for Pat.
I
Well,
was
yeah,
not.
that wasn't here. I mean, all of us who were on when this was.
I might not have the quorum sheet for that one.
So Pat can be included.
I don't believe so. I think
No.
open prior to my appointment. Does
Yeah.
that make sense, Jen?
Correct.
Yeah, Susan, you didn't hear this one, Pat.
Yeah. So just to refresh your memories, it was the house on Squibnocket, long history. They had requested compliance. And when we went out to do compliance, we saw the large stone wall that had kind of been constructed. I'm going to share my screen now. So are you guys looking at that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this circular part, there was a retaining wall at the end of the driveway that ended here on their approved plan. This landing was shown smaller, and then this circular part extended out and was added. Let's see if I can. It's not letting me advance my photos for some reason. I don't know why. So I'm going to stop sharing that. So obviously the staff cannot issue compliance at this point, and it is a violation of the order of conditions that was not approved. The slopes were to be stabilized with vegetation. You know, we knew they were having a problem stabilizing the slope with vegetation, but the order of conditions was very clear that it could not, any alterate, it was a settlement agreement, needed to be come before the board, and that was not done in this case. So we feel it's a violation of the order of conditions, and the wall should be taken down. And I believe the board had a discussion about this the last time. The hay bale line, was disintegrating in the field. And I think there was a discussion at the last hearing where Arlene was told that I said that disintegrating hay bale line could stay and is beneficial to the environment. And we all know how I feel about disintegrating hay bale lines. It needs to be removed. Arlene, was that done yet? I did not go out and check this one.
I don't believe anything has been done out there.
Okay. So again, the board did have kind of a robust discussion about this at the last hearing. It needed to be continued. And I believe it was continued to a few weeks ago to clean up the record and add this other DEP DEP number that's associated with the property. There was a death in the family, and that Arlene had respectfully requested giving the family some time before dealing with the enforcement. And I think that about sums it up.
Okay. I'm sure everybody's going to want to pipe in, right? Maury, we'll start with you.
I haven't got a lot to say except the wall's got to go.
Okay. Betsy?
I do want to make one quick comment, Mr. Chairman. I do believe, and excuse me for this, Arlene, they did submit a request to amend the order of conditions today to keep the wall. But I do believe that this process can go forward. And you'll be discussing the amendment on the 15th. That should be another fun night.
I hope we won't be last that night.
Sorry about that.
Several in a row. If I might, as we had mentioned in the first discussion of this, the intention of the family is to remove the stone slab that's in that little semicircular planting area, finish up the mitigation plantings that were required in the original order.
That stone slab right there, Arlene? Yep.
And so that will come out. The plantings are going to get finished. The deteriorated hay bale line will come out to the extent that we need to replace it to do whatever additional plantings are necessary. That will get beefed up, and then when the plantings are done, it will come out. We haven't actually done any work out there. As Jen mentioned, we had continued this discussion tonight because unfortunately Mr. Solaris took a spill and passed away as a result of complications from that accident. So the family has been trying to get things together, and we would appreciate your forbearance in terms of getting the issues completed. I hope none of you have had the experience, but finances sometimes get pretty tied up when these things go on. So we have filed, as Jen said, to keep the wall, and we'll be back that night to discuss that. There's also a request for an extension of the order of conditions that's pending. I know that the governor's emergency order has sort of stayed all those permits, so we're going to get at least 3 or 4 more months on that. But at this point, and considering the fact that we've had practically no precipitation this late spring, probably the additional planting shouldn't be done until the fall, and just to try and ensure that plants succeed. So we're probably going to need to push that out a couple of months on the other end anyway, to make sure that whatever gets planted in the fall is still alive in the spring.
Well, right now, Arlene, I mean, I don't want to blend because we haven't opened that amended hearing or even advertised it for yet, so it's kind of inappropriate to be talking about it right now. I just want to keep the board focused. I don't want to complicate an already very complicated case history with this. Right now, what's on the table is the wall. The wall does need to be removed. It is a violation of the order of conditions. This board should go forward with that enforcement discussion. And if you file a or you have filed a subsequent like amended order, if once they review that amended order, they choose to accept it and approve it, then we can take care of the enforcement. If they choose tonight to issue an enforcement order, then we can backtrack and deal with whatever they decide to do this evening. But it's this discussion really does need to stay focused and not kind of blend elements that they haven't seen yet.
So do you want to continue the discussion on the request for extension of the order until the 15th?
They didn't extend the order, Arlene. The last hearing, they voted to deny the extension. Now, that said, we understand that the order has been kind of extended to 45 days beyond the end of the declaration of emergency, which we yet to know what date that is. So we do understand that that order of conditions under the government's declaration of emergency has been is still in effect, but this board voted not to grant that 1-year extension. So if the declaration of emergency ends tomorrow, that order expires 45 days from tomorrow. That vote was taken separately at that last hearing. They were separate discussions.
Do I understand right that the mitigation to these two order conditions has not been completed anyway?
My
Arlene,
understanding,
just the word, quote, finished mitigation.
one more row of shrubs that need.
Yeah.
So it's incomplete.
Yeah.
Thank you.
They put the wall in, but not the mitigation.
Yeah.
I mean, what the staff is focused on is the extra wall. If you give me 1 second, I will find another picture of it. My computer just doesn't like sharing. Oh, now it's going to be funny. Hang on. I'll just show another shot of the wall.
You're not sharing. Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So there's Kevin, I believe, was standing downslope to that. So, I mean, there is a large portion of additional wall on the property. And, you know, it's not in compliance with the order. There was added fill brought into that bank and resource area to that bank to accommodate this wall extension. So we feel that it doesn't meet the order of conditions and that it should be removed.
Okay.
It wasn't approved and it was built without approval.
May I ask a question?
Hold
Yes.
on. Go ahead.
My question is, on the plan that was approved under this original order of conditions, there had to be some kind of platform or something for the egress out that side door. What was the plan? What did the plan show was there?
It was a little landing. She showed us the last time.
Was it a wooden platform?
It was a box that the engineer drew on the plan.
But was it like a deck, you know, coming out with a couple of things hanging down, you know, to support it, or was it? I'm just curious.
Hold on, Courtney. I'm getting it. Hang on. 1 second. I have to move stuff around in order to share my screen. All right, Courtney, give me 1 second. It's right there, Courtney. You see it?
Yeah, so what is that?
That was
on great.
Just a little platform that's outside the door.
I understand it's a platform. I want to know because you've got a wall that comes off of that building on the street side that was originally okayed, if I recall right. It's this semicircular wall is the issue. So
correct.
What I want to know is if they take that wall out and they get back down to grade and put plants in there, what is supporting that little bump out? Is that a foundation? Is it a wooden deck with a couple of posts down and a sonotube? That's what I want to know.
Jen, can you?
I want to see a construction
picture you have?
Is there a construction detail of this?
No, there was not, Courtney. It was a box drawn on a plan.
A box drawn on the plan.
I didn't draw it. I didn't draw the plan. Jamie, what did you do?
Can you guys hold on for a second? Jen, could you bring up that picture, the first picture you brought up that showed from the driveway?
The one with the circular one?
when they showed the drainage, because that shows the platform and it shows the wall. So I think what Courtney's looking for is if we force them to remove that wall, will that platform be supported? The answer is yes.
I don't understand how.
Mr. Chairman, if I might.
Yep.
My understanding is that the original egress was supposed to be a wooden platform that was one step above grade, supported by concrete posts, essentially sonotubes. What happened there?
Like a little deck. Almost.
They put a stone
That's what I'm getting at. That's what I want to know about.
grade.
What's going to support this?
So if the wall comes out, we will need to do something about that in order to support that entryway.
So I think what we should do is specify that when the wall comes out, they're allowed to build a wooden platform supported by a post and a sonotube, and then landing on that wall with a railing because it'll be above 4 feet above grade. And we should approve that as part of the enforcement order. That's what I'm getting at.
Okay. Just for the board's knowledge, I'm promoting Brian Wall. He was in the attendee room, just asked to be appointed as a panelist. So I'm bringing Brian up. He has something to say. But yeah, you're right, Courtney. I mean, if we do issue the enforcement order to remove the wall, we're going to have to allow them to build the platform with the post to get the egress.
That's right. I want to see a drawing of it.
Yep.
I want to see a detail.
Yep,
That's why we have a problem right now, because there isn't a clear detail of it.
I wouldn't say that's the only reason we have a problem.
No, I absolutely, Betsy, but that's one of them. So if we're gonna have an enforcement order, let's clean up the mess with the enforcement order and make sure everything is clear.
Okay.
Right. And I have to think there was something on the original plans that would have shown how that step would have been supported.
Well, that's what I'm trying to get at, and I
But it was
don't.
so
Nobody has
long,
an
I
answer.
don't recall what it was.
Well, Ben doesn't have it. Apparently there were on the building plans, which weren't part of what was approved for this.
I think Brian wants to clarify something or
Mr. Wall?
assist with this discussion.
Yes, thank you, staff, and through the chair. By the way, Arlene is the lead on this. I'm just trying to help out on a factual issue here. Some of the board members who've been on for a while might recall that when this proposal first came to you, there was a deck that was proposed adjacent to the house so that one was going to walk from the driveway onto a deck. I don't remember the dimensions. It was several years ago at this point, but I'm going to say it was something like 12 by 12. There was a deck, and part of the reason why there was a deck was that there is really no usable yard down slope from the back of the house. But when the settlement was achieved, and Attorney Harris might remember because she was part of it, part of the deal, the bargain that was struck, was that the parties, the applicants, had to stay within the footprint of the foundation that was negotiated and that was proposed and then negotiated. And so what happened was, this is kind of, for lack of a better word, a loose end that wasn't thought of in the settlement, because under the building code, you need a second means of egress to get out of the first floor. And it was onto the deck, but then the commission took the deck away as part of the settlement, and that left this area that Courtney is looking at now. And so the engineer drew a square there, and I think the thinking was to pour some sonotubes and to have a platform of some type. But now there is what is there now. So that's kind of the background of where this came from.
Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification, Brian.
Sure.
So this comes back to my point, which is I'm supportive in this enforcement order of having that wall removed, the mitigation planning's put in. But I wanted to be incorporated in there that a wooden platform supported by a sonotube and landing on the wall that was permitted. If it's required because of elevation from the ground, that it have a 3-foot high guardrail around railing on 2 sides. All that should be specified as part of this, and so that it cleans up this loose end. This is for everybody's benefit.
Okay, anything else, Courtney?
Nope.
Okay, Betsy?
Thanks, Jamie. Yeah, I agree with Maury and Courtney. The wall has to go, both the slopes on either side, which this one obviously has to be stabilized. The one on the other side is not stable either. They both have to be stabilized with appropriate vegetation. And I want to go ahead with the enforcement order.
Okay. Kevin?
The other side, there was no comment at the time that it needed stabilization.
Jen mentioned that the vegetation there is sparse, I guess.
I can show you a picture. I think I have one, Kevin.
This was from the last hearing, Kevin. I'm just saying the slopes on either side of the house have to be stabilized.
Yeah, and I guess my question is,
Can you see that, Kevin? That's what the other side looks like.
We can't see anything yet.
Not yet. There it is. Yeah, I remember it from the last time. Okay.
Okay.
Was there, in the order of conditions, original order of conditions, was there any comment about having to stabilize that slope?
Yes, the slopes have to be stabilized with vegetation.
Okay, that's my question. Then we're back to Maury and everybody else saying the wall has to come down, and that's the next course of action for us.
Yeah. Anything else, Kevin?
Oh, fine, thank you.
Okay. Mark?
Yeah. Well, I guess I'm pretty annoyed at this, to this extent. This commission has been acting so indignant because they didn't follow the plans. This wasn't on the plan. In fact, no egress was on the plan. However, there hasn't been the slightest discussion about what impact there is on the environment, on the land there. And that's a kind of unpleasant situation to deal with. The hill is rather steep. It's been pretty well planted, I thought, down below the wall. I just am uncomfortable. I mean, on the one hand, I'm comfortable because they went ahead and did it. And they're not the first person that's done that with us. There have been innumerable situations where either by misunderstandings or just blundering ahead and asking forgiveness rather than permission, jobs get done. But I don't want to go out on the edge of being so indignant that we're unreasonable. That's all.
How would you be unreasonable, Mark?
Well, if this were my house and I wasn't dealing with conservation, I was just dealing with what do I do about this land and how do I get into the house from the door, which I have to have another door off to the side. And I would put a wall like that. And then I'd say, okay, well, what can I do about it? Well, if this is detrimental to the local environment or the conservation standards, what more planting can I do? Can I do another area in a different part of the lot, farther down the hill perhaps, or maybe off to the side a little bit more to ameliorate for the not particularly huge, I don't know what the word, attack to that land, which should have been, without that wall, just more slope up to the wall that currently ends the driveway and then a few more plants. So I could imagine looking at another location and say, okay, I would put in another 50 or 100 square feet of something.
There's no room to, Mark.
No room. No room there, Mark. That's the problem.
No room.
When this house was built, it was it was beyond the envelope at its maximum. And when you ask about the environment, that wall and that fill is not helping the environment at all. That area that the wall and the fill is all in was supposed to be vegetated, which was to improve the environment when this house was permitted. The wall is not engineered. We never saw it. We always have an engineered wall, anything over 4 feet. There's no drainage. I mean, it's just, it was not permitted, and it wasn't permitted for a reason. It was never asked for, and it would never have been permitted because the history of this lot would not have allowed any more structure.
Is there a building permit on this wall?
No.
And we know it's not engineered, or we just sort of expect they just popped it in there?
We never got anything.
It does not have a building permit, Mark. It did not go through the proper vetting procedure from the town building inspectors.
Well, it certainly should have a building permit. I agree.
Well, it does not.
Right, and the building department would have required it to be engineered.
And they would have required it to go back to Concom because it's a Concom jurisdiction.
Right.
Right.
Very likely they would also have required a railing on the top.
All right. Peter?
I agree with Betsy.
Okay. Russ?
I'm with Courtney and Maury on this one.
Steve?
It's all been said. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
may I ask a clarification question?
Yes.
If this commission votes to, I don't know what they vote to, but vote to say it should be taken out, that doesn't mean they'll go in with jackhammers and start taking it out. I understand that they're planning to come in with a requested, approved, amended order of conditions, or maybe coming in for that, or I don't know what.
Correct, Mark. So if this board goes ahead tonight and let's say votes to issue an enforcement order requiring the removal of the wall, requiring the stabilizations of the slope, and requiring an egress to be shown properly on sonotubes and everything, and we go forward and we vote that, you have an enforcement order and you give them a certain amount of days to do all of that work, correct? They do have in our office a pending application for an amendment, because technically the order of conditions is still valid under the governor's emergency declaration. So then we'll have to address the amendment. If at that point the board decides that what they've proposed in that amendment package, and I haven't seen it, it just came in today, that you can always come back and, vote to rescind the enforcement order.
Thank you. So there's a path.
There is a path. I just don't want to get all convoluted and start, mixing them all up. I think we should just keep each thing very clear. And if this board decides in a couple of weeks that they've had an epiphany and the wall can stay, then we will find a path forward to rescind this enforcement order.
So we're dealing with what's in front of us. We're not sending.
Yeah,
them
we're
out
dealing with what's in
to
front
talk
of us now. We cannot talk about amendment that nobody's seen yet, or advertised for, or publicly notified for.
Yeah, I was just primarily concerned about the timeline. You explained
Yep.
that. Thank you very much.
No problem.
May I ask one more question?
Yep.
If by chance we were to go ahead with this amendment, wouldn't the building commissioner come in? I mean, is the building commissioner aware that this is there's a wall that?
They are aware. I do believe there's a number of open inspections and issues on this property in regards to the actual house itself. So, and Russell can kind of clarify that. I don't know, Russell, if you know how many open permits it's off. I know there's when I did ask the building department if this one had a building permit, they're very well aware of this property, and there are a lot of open inspections, I think is what they're called.
I think the only thing that's left there is they didn't do a final building inspection, and of course,
Okay.
for the property. I know plumbing and gas was signed off, and I believe the electrical was signed off, so.
Okay.
What's left with building.
Okay. And to the builders, would that wall require a railing at the top for code?
Yes.
Okay.
Anything 4 feet, 4 feet, I believe, and over.
Yeah. Yes, that's correct.
That's
Kevin, the wall's taller than you are, isn't it?
Yeah. It requires, I believe, a railing or a clearly defined setback. For example, if there was a row of plants, like a hedge, you might not have to have
I think it's solid where you had to put a railing up now, Courtney. I think that's changed.
Okay.
Yeah.
I believe.
Okay, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, that wasn't the case.
All right. All right. Jen, are there any public comments? Well, there wouldn't be for this, would there?
Yeah, but I think this was from Brian earlier trying to jump in. Yes. Brian, it said regarding the questions about the land.
We're all set, Jim.
Okay.
That's the landing.
Okay.
Okay. Any further comments?
So are you looking for a motion, Jamie?
Yes, please,
So
specifically.
see if I remember. If I don't remember it, people jump in. So I make a motion to issue an enforcement order that requires the wall to come down, the slopes on either side of the house to be stabilized with appropriate vegetation. And I guess, and some provision made for that little step that's outside the second egress, a sonotube or something. So the
A plan submitted.
A plan has to be submitted showing that. And do we need to give a time?
Well, you also want to have the hay bale line removed and the additional shrubs that were required for mitigation installed.
Right.
Correct.
Right. And do we need to give a timeline, right?
Yep.
So what do you suggest? I mean, that plan could come in. It probably isn't the best time of year to plant there. So we could say the plan has to be in a month? Is that reasonable? 30 days?
The plan for the step?
The plan for removing the
landing.
wall, putting in the
Yeah.
mitigation planning, et cetera. And then the plants have to be installed no later than October 15th.
Okay.
I might give a little longer on the plan, though. I know everybody seems to be really busy, so they might run into a wall, trying to get that plan done in 30 days.
So do you want to say 45 days?
45 or 60.
What is what's gonna slow it down, Russ? I mean, is the plan is gonna provide for planting, so that's what we want to see. But as far as demolishing a wall, that's pretty easy. It just, and then the only other issue is having a drawing that is can be submitted to the building department that amends the building permit to encompass a deck supported by sonotubes and a railing for that means of egress.
Well, that's what I'm talking about, Courtney. I'm talking about that deck and the sonotubes, because I can tell you right now, the building department's 30 days out. Any permit, that has to be reviewed. And again, they're going to have to get an engineer or at least somebody qualified to design that. So how long is that going to take? A week, 2 weeks?
Is that gonna require a structural engineer?
I would say,
No.
I would say,
What?
or at least the architect, right?
An
What,
architect,
for that little platform?
yes.
I don't see why you'd need a structural engineer designing that.
Well, let's just say 60 days. I mean, this is,
Yeah, that's fair.
Hey, guys, I think it's, we can get a plan with it. I mean, they need to submit a plan to the staff, 60 days, platform, showing the removal of the wall. We're gonna be very clear, removal of the wall, slope stabilization, hay bales removed, that row of inkberry to go in, and that landing to be supported by sonotubes. If this board wants to see that plan, then I would sit there and say, let's continue it to that date certain, and that they have to submit that plan to this board on that day.
I would agree.
Okay, so give them the 60 days.
We'll continue it for 60 days. They have to submit that plan within that 60-day time frame. If you want to review it, do so at that hearing, and then you can require the plants to be removed and everything. Does that sound okay?
Yes.
so towards the end of August sometime,
But that plan needs to be submitted to us by that date.
So
or a week before that date.
what do we got for a date?
Hang on.
August 15th. That is weekday.
Hold up. Well, that's around like, I would say the August 12th hearing. It's around 60 days. Actually, it's not. That's around like 45 days. 30,
What's the last hearing in August?
26.
So my motion will also include that the plan has to be in by the 26th. Are you with us, Susan?
Why don't we have the plan a week before that so we can review it?
Well, no, that's we're continuing it till then, but the plan has to be in a week before so people can review it. You with me, Jen?
And then you wanted to give them 60 days to submit the plan, and then another, so then you can, at that point, close the enforcement hearing, issue the enforcement order that they have to take the wall out and put the plants in by a date certain sometime in October. I think that's the proper way to go.
So this is actually a continuance, not a,
Correct.
So we're gonna continue it till 20, whatever it is.
Correct.
And then we'll approve the plan. And then we're saying
Correct.
by October 15th, they have to have the work completed.
Correct.
I'm okay with that.
But we're not actually voting for an enforcement order. We're voting for a continuance right now.
Correct. And that might make whatever discussion you have about the amendment a little cleaner too.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to continue this until August 26th.
Mm-hmm.
And the plan has to be in a week ahead of time.
Correct.
okay. Do we have a second?
Carla Hawks, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Continue this. Who's speaking? We have a motion and a second to continue this to 8/26. Betsy,
Gladfelder, aye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
One second, Arlene, are you clear with that?
I think so.
Okay, thank you.
Aye.
Tomorrow I'll give you a call.
Okay.
Maury,
Carla Hawks, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Russ,
Robbins, aye.
Steve?
Aye.
It's unanimous. It's continued until 8:26. And Jen, if you
you.
would speak with Arlene separately and just clarify, make sure that it's
Yep.
clear what we're looking for, please, and thank you. Thank you, Arlene. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Nice to see you, Brian.
Yes, nice to see everyone, and nice to see everyone being healthy and well too.
Yeah,
You
right.
as well. Good night, Arlene.
Night.
Yeah, where
All
are you, Brian? There you are. Good night, Brian.
Good night. Thank you, everyone.
Next up, boat order conditions. First up, Arthur and Pamela Chavez, 400 Edgewater Drive East, East Falmouth, Mass. This is the removal of the pool and adding a deck.
Yeah. Okay, so 1 second. Betsy, do you have that quorum sheet?
Yeah, it's Courtney, Kevin, Maury, Betsy, Jamie, Russ, Steve.
Okay. Well, guys.
And Pat.
Sorry?
And Pat. Pat was voted up.
About me.
No, we have, if it's Courtney, Kevin, Maury, Betsy, Jamie, Russ, and Steve, that's 7 of you. Am I right? That's
Yeah, except Pat was voted up.
your, well, who is she replacing?
She's replacing Mark. Kevin wasn't full last time.
No, it doesn't, that's not my question. Wait a minute. 1, 2, 3.
She was replacing Mark, who was not here.
Oh, got it. So Kevin and Peter are out. Right?
Yeah, but don't go away, Kevin. There's more.
Don't go away, Kevin. So, okay, so.
And Mark, right?
No,
Courtney,
Mark
Maury.
wasn't here.
That's what I just said.
Correct. Mark wasn't here. Kevin and Peter are out. Pat is in.
Okay. So they want to remove the pool and they would like to expand the deck. Unfortunately, the deck is moving closer to the resource area in that zone A of the salt marsh and is in the velocity zone. I think they're staying under the square footage. Hang on, I need to find it. There. They're staying under the square footage. Revised deck size. It's
under 200 square feet.
Right, but there's only a portion of it that's in the
A zone, correct.
yeah.
Yeah, there's a portion of it, one corner that's in the A zone. I know it seemed to the applicant, terribly unfair, but these are the regulations and the staff's job is to keep the board very consistent with the regulations. And so, our position is it does not meet them. So the board can have a discussion.
But before
If
Jamie,
the
excuse me.
variance, right, there would have to be a hardship. We just went through this with another dock down off Minot Road. And there was no hardship, so we could not grant the variance. I don't see a hardship here.
No, they brought the property a few years ago, I think you said.
Again, how is that a hardship?
There's no hardship, Jamie.
Oh, you
There's really no hardship.
Whether it's 10 square or 2 square feet or 100-foot dock, I'm sorry, I can't see granting a variance on this.
So they're not asking for a variance, Russ. But you're right. If they did ask, they wouldn't qualify. So,
I
Jamie?
specifically remember somebody mentioning something about a variance, and I said, "Whoa, wait a minute here."
Well, I mean, if we
Just
approve,
thrown out. Yeah, that was just thrown out as a discussion point. But there was no formal variance requested at this one.
but if we approve the deck as drawn, we effectively are giving them a variance, correct?
well, I don't see it that way.
Okay,
And first of all, I want Jen to make sure that with that pool comes out, everything has to go out. They've got to get rid of any impervious surface in that square. Otherwise, there's no sense in doing this. But if they,
So yeah, so remember they were going to like basically remove the patio, keep the stone wall, and then backfill the pool, right?
yeah, they're gonna move a little bit, they're gonna remove a little bit around the side, but then they're gonna backfill and leave the bottom of the pool there.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't do any good.
Flat.
Yeah, that doesn't do any good. But if they are gonna, if they do take everything out, and I think we need to have, they're gonna have to submit proof that everything's come out. Then I think the deck, there can be a finding that the deck is not part of the house. Because you're allowed to have, you're allowed to, if you have impervious surface in the A zone for accessory structures, you're allowed to move that around. You're allowed to continue to have accessory structures, but in a different position as long as you're not, the same amount of impervious surface. But in fact, there should be a finding that the impervious surface in the A zone is decreasing from whatever the pool is to whatever this little deck is. But the deck there has to be a finding that the deck is not part of the house.
That's absolutely, you know what, and I know where you're going with this, Betsy, but I'm gonna have to respectfully disagree. How is the deck not part of the house? If you guys start making a finding that the decks aren't part of the houses, then you're gonna have decks moving closer to your resource area. We've always held really, really firm, small little staircases, you've had them kind of shift and bend so they're not encroaching in the A zone. You cannot start saying that the deck is not part of the house.
Well, the deck.
Well, that will destroy your regulations the way.
Wait a second, though. If somebody wanted to move a deck closer and they took all the other impervious surface out of the A zone, but it depends on.
It's a slippery slope, and I'm going to warn you against it. I know what you're trying to do. It's a tough one, guys. But the deck is moving closer than the present primary structure. And you cannot start saying a deck isn't part of the present primary structure, because then you're basically just contradicting everything we've done for the last 12 years.
Well, they certainly can make the deck not part of the primary structure. It needn't be attached to it.
But you still can't move, and you can't move closer than the present primary structure. That's the point.
Well, he's saying if it's not part of the structure, if it's 2 feet out, and then you just have a little deck, that's instead of having the however many 400 square feet of the pool.
You can't have any impervious surface moving closer than the present primary structure. You have never counted pools or patios or anything like that as part of your present primary structure.
We have to be
You
consistent.
guys are going to twist yourself. I'm just going to warn you. I know this is a tough one, but you're going to twist yourselves up in a knot, and it's going to come back to haunt you. There, go have your discussion.
For all resources, this is FWR 10.18. 7E1. For all resources listed in 10.185A, accessory structures in Zone A located closer to the resource than the primary structure may be modified. But the amount of impervious surface or pervious surface that cannot support vegetation in this area must not be increased.
I think that's modifying an existing structure, Bets.
No, this is
Here's the other thing.
structures.
But Betsy, you're skipping the whole first part of the regulation, and that's, you can't just skip over that part.
Picking and choosing.
I'm not picking and choosing. It says
For all resources.
May I just bring
you have
some
accessory structures in the A zone,
What's the accessory structure?
the pool.
Okay, hang on, for all resources.
I could comment. I think one of the things you have to look at is what is the net result here? And if you pull out a pool and a patio that surrounds it and you remove all of the impervious surfaces completely, and then you at the same time build a deck on the end of the house that's takes up less space and is further back, to my way of thinking, that's an improvement. Now, is that what the regulations say? I think that's what we're struggling with.
I don't think the regulations allow for that balancing. You know, we're taking this and we're giving that.
Well, you can. People move stuff around all the time in the A zone.
Well, my understanding of the regulations is if you don't comply with the regulations, you either need to qualify for a variance or you need to rebut the presumption of significance.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see that happening here. I mean, you know, as Russ pointed out earlier, I just threw that out at the last hearing because I saw what Courtney is talking about. The end result seems to be a benefit. But that's not the way the regulations are written. It requires you to comply with strict compliant requirements of the variance. And one thing that we're just glossing over, 1038 doesn't allow this either. I mean, I understand that staff was pointing out to us that the deck needed to be reduced to 200 square feet. But if you go through 1038 4F, it has 4 provisos, and it says that a small addition to an existing structure is allowed in the V zone, provided all other FWRs are complied with. The structure is not in any other resource area. And number 3 is the structure is not in area subject to resource area buffer regulations.
What was the number again, Pat?
It's 10.38 sub 4 sub F.
Oh, we can say that, guys. Pat, you've just never followed that particular, you've just always allowed these smaller additions in a velocity zone, even if it was within a resource area buffer. It's something you've been doing since I started.
So even though it says this, it's...
Let's check this.
Yes. The answer is yes.
The answer is yes. So back to buffer.
I'm so confused.
I know. I'll explain it to you tomorrow, Pat.
All right.
So I mean, Pat is right. You could always sit there and try to overcome that presumption. The problem with that, unless you really have a clear, plan that says this is going to overcome the presumption, saying, they're taking out this pool, they're taking out everything, they're putting in a ton of, buffer plantings and everything. If
they aren't
just manipulating this, we think they overcame the presumption in this case and not in this case, you're going to go down that arbitrary and capricious path that this board
has been really good at not going down. You know, I mean, you could sit there, approve the pool, deny the deck, and then the applicant can figure it out how they want to come back and see how they might be able to overcome the presumptions in a way where this board can make a really clear decision and, you know, feel good about making that decision, you know. But in this case, they're not quite there yet. And in this case, the staff is saying, yes, you're removing impervious surface. The impervious surface has been there since 1975.
Right.
You know, and they're putting in a turf lawn. You know, yeah, is the turf lawn a little bit better? Yeah, but they're still leaving in, you know, a majority of the pool. That was their plan. We could say dig it all out, but you know, the environment really isn't greatly benefiting, you know, in a way where I think you can overcome your presumption. So I think the board or the recommendation would be, you know, they can remove the pool. You can't put on the deck and let the applicant come back, ask for an amendment if they want to figure it out.
I can live with that. But make sure that the pool has, all of it has to come out, otherwise there's no environmental benefit.
I would agree.
You know, I mean, I know this is a tough one. I knew you guys were going to struggle with this. I knew on the face of it, like, oh, look, this looks great. But unfortunately, it trips up against this one regulation, this one pesky regulation we have. And, you know, you have always held your ground about not allowing that encroachment. And if you allow this encroachment, it's going to happen like you know, what was thrown in your faces at the 160 Penzance Road hearing, because you allowed that little expansion to that little retaining wall on Ridge Road. And just because we made a mistake once doesn't mean we keep making that same mistake. Hold your ground.
Well, the fact is they didn't submit this as an accessory structure in A, they submitted it as a deck. So I don't have any problem with your suggestion.
And that'll just keep you compliant with your regulations and let the applicant figure it out what he wants to do.
Yeah. I would agree.
Anybody
You know,
else?
you're not going to deny the whole project. We'll say you can remove the pool, which is the main part of their project. They want to put the deck, we'll come back and figure out a way that makes you guys happy.
Can I ask a question? If I remember right, they were proposing to remove the pool, but keep the retaining wall around?
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, is that, I mean, again, that's troublesome. I mean, why not just take the whole thing out and including the base of the pool? In other words,
Well, they were going to propose to leave the base of the pool too. So if you want the pool removed, you want the pool entirely removed. The entire.
Absolutely. I think that has to be one of the conditions. And then the question is, what's the justification for the retaining wall? Why not just grade it out?
But this is what's in front of us, Courtney.
They proposed to keep the retaining wall, Courtney, so they didn't propose to remove it. We can't say you have to remove it. It's been there since 1975. I get it. No, I get it. This is a
So if they want to come back and amend,
wonky one. Yeah.
get their deck, we can bargain with them about the retaining wall.
No. Because now you're switching structures again. You're trying to do what Betsy was doing.
So I'm going to make a motion
down there in the left corner of my screen.
I'm going to make a motion to accept the pool, accept the entire removal of the pool, and not accept the deck. To approve one and not approve the other. And that there should be some photographic evidence that the entire pool is removed.
Okay.
We have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All right, so is everybody clear on this? All right. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
Thankfully, not part of the quorum.
All right. Maury?
Hello, Hawks, aye.
Peter, you on the quorum?
No, Peter and Kevin are not.
Okay. Russ?
Robbins, aye.
Pat?
Harris, aye.
Steve?
Pat and I, in my interview, I said this is going to be one of the hardest decisions I've had to make.
It is a hard decision, and I know you guys want to, I know on the face of it, it looks great, and give me a call tomorrow, Steve. I'll explain something. I was out in the field with Alyssa the other day, and the Fay Road project side by side were a great example about the regulations, just, where the little cottage couldn't move closer to the resource area than the existing present primary structure, but the property next door, because it already had the structure on it, got to move way closer. That's when you can look at that, and that was like side by side. You could see where the regulations were a bit unfair, but I mean, you can't write a regulation that addresses everything. So this one was going to be tough. I knew that when I saw it.
All right, next up, College Light Opera Company, Inc., 54 Chappaquoit Road, West Falmouth, Mass. Quorum, please.
Hey, Kevin, Betsy, Maury, Jamie, Russ, Steve, Pat.
I don't think so.
Oh, no, Pat.
No, not on clock.
No, you're below.
Not on clock.
Yeah. So Courtney, Kevin, Betsy, Maury, Jamie, Russ, Steve, Peter.
So just not Mark.
And Pat.
Pat wasn't on it?
No,
Not on clock.
Actually, Peter's
it
not.
opened prior to my appointment.
Yeah.
Okay. Jen, you want to outline this?
They're widening the road because they need the 18-foot road. They're putting in a gravel trench drain for drainage. They're adding additional vegetation. They've moved some of the vegetation around to keep the 10-foot separation from the buildings. And I believe they added additional vegetation, Maury, to mitigate for the utility swath they put in. Correct?
Correct. Actually, there were two of them, one for
Yeah.
one for electric. And the other
Yeah.
thing too is when they remove the hay bales along the salt marsh, that they should revegetate because all that vegetation's dead underneath.
Oh, yeah. Hay bales can be so damaging. But other than that, I think, I don't think you guys had any additional questions or special conditions other than the hay bale line, Maury.
Will there be a maintenance program for that drain? Because, I mean, if they don't take care of it, it's gonna go right in the salt marsh.
Yeah, we
Yep.
should have insist on that.
I'll have them submit an operation and maintenance plan to the staff.
I'll make a motion to accept as discussed. Gladfelter.
Arlo Hawks.
Okay. We have a motion and a second for an order of conditions. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Third eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Arlo Hawks, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Russ,
Robbins, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
All right, we have an order of conditions. Thank you, folks. One more motion.
I'll move to adjourn.
Pat and second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Third eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Mark,
Renee, aye.
Maury,
Carlo Hawks, aye.
Pat,
Harris, aye.
Peter,
Walsh, aye.
Russ,
Robbins, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone. IT, if you would, stop recording.